All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, it's Friday night. Law of one, right? Wait, I got to take down that overlay, don't I? Hi, Denise. I see you there in the chat. There we go. Let me put myself up in full screen so you guys don't have to look at that blank screen there. All right, welcome. All right, share this out. Like I said, share this out. Joanne, welcome. Denise, welcome over there on YouTube. Peter, hi, Peter. Welcome, brother. So I'm live on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. I just got myself out of Facebook jail today. I've been in Facebook jail since last Friday for the entire week. And today's the first day. I guess it was 5 days, but officially it didn't end until today, which would have been almost day 7, right? So I couldn't comment or post anything other than creative content. So anything I created, I could post. But I couldn't share anything anybody else posted, and I could not comment. I could hit a thumbs up or something on a comment, but I couldn't say hi. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't comment in any way. I was in jail. And the reason I was in jail on Facebook was that I posted a video where a woman was talking about during the hurricane, not the one that went west to east over Florida, but the other one that tracked up into North Carolina. And she was claiming that if you showed up with stuff and FEMA would confiscate it. If you were trying to help people, they would confiscate it. And so people had to kind of stay away from FEMA. And of course, the current regime and the American government claimed that was not happening, except then it was reported on the news that it was happening. Afterwards, but I was still put in Facebook jail over saying that, posting a video of a woman who was saying that, that President Trump actually reported that happened to him and Elon Musk when Elon Musk put up Starlink in North Carolina, Western North Carolina, so that people had Wi-Fi. FEMA went and confiscated Starlink. And then Donald Trump heard about it, and Elon Musk heard about it, and they showed up at the FEMA headquarters that they were set up over there. And all of a sudden they were like, oh, no, that's for everybody. But they confiscated it so that nobody had any Wi-Fi until Donald Trump showed up. And he reported that, and it was reported on the news, on television. So what that woman was saying was true, but I was 6 days banned from anything as misinformation by Facebook for posting that. Yet it actually did happen, and it was happening exactly what the woman said. So again, they considered me a conservative, and therefore I got banned. So I'm doing a test, and I still haven't found, since shadow banning's been going on every platform, I still have not found a single person who was a liberal or a Democrat in the United States that has been banned for anything, truly. Because some people go, oh yeah, no, I was banned, bro. You guys are just making that up. It's not a thing that only happens to conservatives. I was banned. Really? Show me the notification that you got, because they stay on your file. You can, unless you delete them, they're up there, right? Oh, no, I deleted that. Everybody always has no proof of it, and you never hear them talking about it, and you never hear them complaining about it, and you never see them posting screenshots like everybody does when they get shadow banned and censored by these platforms for doing things if they're conservative. So I have yet to hear anyone state that they have ever been in any way hassled on any platform. But if you post something that they believe in some way is a conservative post, you get problems from them. I saw that, Denise. Did you say hi over on Instagram too? Yes, you did, didn't you? That's cool. I love that. Thank you. That's funny right there. I don't care who you are, right? Cassie, welcome. I didn't see either because I didn't have my glasses on. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. Right? Tag people, get them in here. Okay. So, yeah, there you go, Denise. Thank you. Denise is tagging people. Get them in here. Well, Rick's probably working, right? He's probably working today. So, yeah, so I just got out of jail. Okay, so yesterday, today's Friday for us in America. If you're in Australia, it's Saturday already. Yesterday, Thursday for us, so that would have been Friday for you guys in Australia, we had a full moon. The full moon was a silver moon, was a harvest moon, was a super moon, and was a hunter moon. In case I couldn't post it, I couldn't share any posts, so I couldn't even share the post into the Law of One chat to show you guys that all of that was going on. I thought about typing it in there, but then I was so busy doing other things, honestly, talking to people, working with people, that I didn't have time to do that. And then Deborah, welcome. Deborah Anderson, welcome. And then the full moon came and went, but it's still, pretty much full, so you guys can take a look at it. Silver moon, full moon, silver moon, harvest moon, super moon, hunter moon, right? So it's the harvest for October. It's the last harvest before we hit November, and then there'll be another full moon. But by old world standards, this is the what they would call the Samhain moon in Ireland, not to be pronounced Samhain, by the way. That drives me crazy when Americans look at that word and say Samhain, because they don't understand how Irish, Gaelic, Gallic, and Welsh is spelled and pronounced. I was watching an episode of Pit Bulls and Parolees when it was on, and they named one of their dogs Sam Hain. And I just put my hand over my forehead like this and covered my eyes and just shook my head. And they filmed it on television, and nobody corrected them and said it's not pronounced Sam Hain, it's pronounced Samhain. And I was just like, well, by the time I saw it, it was a few years after it was posted. And I was like, I could write an email to them, but I'm sure by now someone said to those girls from Pit Bulls and Parolees, it's not pronounced Sam Hain, it's pronounced Samhain. And it means summer's end, by the way. Everyone's like, it means Halloween. No, it means the word literal translation. Peter's in the audience. He can tell you. Literal translate. And if Pamela were here, she would tell you, well, no, Pamela doesn't speak Irish. Peter does. And he would tell you, it means summer's end. Samhain, summer's end. Not Sam Hain, just because it's spelled Samhain. The M and the H make a W sound. Okay, it's a compound letter like our TH. TH. You wouldn't say, well, the Irish would, but you wouldn't say fought her. You would say father. Mot her. No, you would say mother, right? Although the Irish who invented the compound lettering don't have the TH in their language. That was something that was an advent from the English later on. But Sam Hain is not pronounced Sam Hain. It's pronounced Samhain. Okay. Thank you. Peter Zerdy says, that is correct. That's correct. Thank you, Peter. So it drives me crazy when people, that's like when people say Celtic. The Scottish, I love you guys in Scotland, Alba go bra, but it's pronounced Celtic. Okay? You guys aren't saying it right because that's a Greek word. Okay? The Greeks invented that word, and it was a catch-all phrase, and it comes from the word Keltoi, and it was a hard C. It was a K sound, but they back then didn't have a K either. Okay, so it was pronounced Keltoi, and it meant those people who live up north who are not Greek. That's what it meant. It was a derogatory term, Keltoi. Okay, so the word is Celtic. I love you, Scottish. I'm learning the Scottish language as well as I'm learning the Irish language. And it's just a dialect thing, but you guys get so uppity, Scottish people get so uppity that you believe that you're right about everything. Look it up. The documentaries, even from the Greeks, pronounce that word Celt, not Celt. Okay? Love you guys. I love you guys. But the Boston Celtics, wrong. I love the Boston Celtics too, by the way. Wrong. They should have been the Boston Celtics. Anyway, okay. Now I'm looking at what you guys are talking about in the chat. What is it, Cassie, you're saying here? I was definitely affected by that, by both the heavy energy and then released it to feel the loving light and to flow in. Yeah, the full moon was, I'm still feeling it. I usually do for about 3 days prior, and then 3 days after the moon. I've always felt you could lock me in a room and I could tell you when the full moon was. Literally, you could. So I'm blindfolded and don't have any way of telling, and I would go, full moon today. I've always been very sensitive to the full moon. So yeah, it's silver moon, full moon, super moon, harvest moon, hunter's moon. Okay, so today's Friday. I'm not going to get involved in any kind of crazy politics. There's enough of that craziness going on in the United States right now and around the world, because there's 18 days or something like that until the election here in the United States. So everybody on Facebook and all the platforms that are in America are insanely screaming past each other and saying that their candidate is a superhero and a god, and the other candidate is worse than the devil, worse than Hitler, worse than Genghis Khan. And they're trying to make up a new name for the most hideous creature in the face of the earth to give to each person, right? Ashley, welcome. Yes, I was just talking about you guys a second ago. So literally, and then I was late. Then my computer, I don't know what was going on. I was late because I had to get my mom a shower and then get lunch for her and for myself. And I was running around, and then I had been talking to Ashley and Pamela through Pamela. She was texting me because a buddy of mine came through and was talking to her, and she was giving me a message of what he was saying. And she was like, "Oh my God, he cusses a lot. And is he like that?" I'm like, yeah, no, that's him. He was a warrior. He's definitely a Viking. He was definitely a Viking, and he was a warrior in a berserk, and that's the way he was, very aggressive. When he had the chance, he was always aggressive in the way he spoke, but he would be non-aggressive if the time called for it. But the truth is that that's the way he was. And so he made a comment about, because I guess she was in bed, and so I guess I don't know if she had any clothes on, and he came in and he looked at her and he said, nice tits, right? And I was like, oh my God, that is so him. He would have said that. That's the way he was. He got into a fight with a girlfriend that I had one day, not a joke, because he did this to everybody. If they didn't see him as a threat, he would be like, no, you don't understand. I'm not this timid guy like you think I am. And if they would be like, well, no, you're nobody and you're useless and you're not even, he would just reach out and grab their boob. Perp. See, now you hate me. Now you're mad at me. Now you want to kick my butt because a minute ago you would have thought I would have never done that. And now I just grabbed your boobs. And so he actually got into a fight with a girlfriend of mine. She was kicking his butt because how dare you grab my, she just started wailing on him. He was looking at me like, are you going to stop this? I was like, bro, you did it. Now you're in for it. Dude, you started it, bro, and didn't do that. She was kicking his butt. So that's kind of the way he was. He could be rude at times and had no filters, but he was a good guy. So after I was talking to her and answering her, I was trying to get the show prepped, and I was kind of in a hurry, and all of a sudden my computer crashed. I don't know what happened. It just froze, and then I had to close all the windows out. And then when I opened the windows to get back into Facebook, it made me log in and verify my account. And then when I went to StreamYard, it made me log in and verify my account. And then when I went to Instagram, it made me log in, say, and verify my account. Not a joke. I was like, what? It wasn't like I logged out of everything. It just, my computer froze and I closed the literally forced closed all of but it dumped all the memory of the cookies and everything. And I had to log back in. So I was almost late getting on here, running crazy right then. Okay. So, so now I'm looking at what you guys are saying here without my glasses on. Did you say Reese was here? Oh, welcome, Reese. I didn't see you. I'm sorry, brother. I didn't see you because I didn't have my glasses on looking at the chat. So yeah, that was crazy. Okay. So we're on session number 62 of the Law of One. I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. But yeah, it was funny that everything that Pamela was saying, she was like, would he talk like this? And I was like, oh my God, you have no idea. That is so him. Everything you're saying is him. I wanted to tell the story. That's why I brought it up, because I was telling her this story. I don't know if she got to read it because I had texted that right before I went live here. When he and I would go into over here in the United States in stores, convenience stores, gas stations, they used to put up these signs that would say, like, there, no shoes, no shirts, no service. That was famously written. Country singer wrote a song about that. But then they would put one up that said, no riffraff, right? No riffraff in the store, no rough housing, no horseplay, and no riffraff. So Paul and I, this is the kind of people that we were. We would walk into the store and we would see the sign, and he would pick up the sign, or I would, and we would hold it up and show it to the cashier. And then I would say, or he would say, right? He would look at the cashier and he'd go, okay, so I'm Riff, he's Raph. What do you know about us? What makes you prejudiced against us coming in here? People would be like, what are you talking about? And we'd show them the sign. Your sign says no riffraff. My name is Riff, his name's Raph. And then they would go, I thought he said his name was Riff. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. His name's Riff, my name's Raph. And so then we started, which one are you today? Are you Riff or are you Raph? And we would, everywhere we went in, if they had a sign that said no Riff Raph, we'd walk in and go, okay, I'm Riff, he's Raph, and here we are, right? Just so you know, we wanted to tell you that because your sign says we're not supposed to be in here, so you better call the police because we're coming in anyways. And we would just do that's the stuff that we did. It was fun and it was funny because some people would be like, what are you talking about? That doesn't mean what your name is Riff and your name is Raph. And I was like, yeah, my name's Rafferty. And his name is Rifter. Don't even ask why his parents named him that. He gets really mad about it. So we call him Riff, okay? And then they would be like, it doesn't mean you guys. Well, then you should take the sign down because we're kind of offended that you have a sign up that says we can't come in. We used to have a blast with that everywhere we went. I'm Riff, he's Raph. And we would die laughing, right? He named his car the Cognito. So he could call me from his car and say, I'm incognito. I'm on my way to your house. Right? I mean, that's the humor that Paul had. I miss him. He's dead now. He's been dead for almost 2 years now. But that was the type of person who called his name the Cognito. And so he would say, I'm incognito. And that meant he was in his car driving. Isn't that funny? His car's named Incognito. People name their car Betsy, and he named his car Cognito. And then he would literally either text me, I'm on my way, I'm incognito. And people would go, what does that mean? I'm like, it means he's in his car. Well, why didn't he just say that? He did. His car's name is Cognito. I remember when I was in high school, and then I'll get on to Law of One, I swear to God. When I was in high school, I was a freshman, I think, and my government teacher said that we were talking about cars, and I brought up something about I love the Volkswagen Bug, and I ended up buying one. I ended up getting one when I was 17. And at the time I was like 16 and I wanted a Volkswagen Bug. Missed that car. It was a great car. It was pumpkin orange. So it looked like a pumpkin. People would tell me, what are you driving, your pumpkin today? And so I just started laughing and I called my car the pumpkin. I thought about, and on Halloween I did one time, but I thought about leaving it up there. I actually made a foam attachment that looked like, what is that called? The stem. And I put it on top of the car, and I tacked it down to the top of the car and drove around with it up there. So I had a pumpkin for Halloween. It was my car, and everybody laughed. So my teacher tells me this joke. We're talking about cars, and I said the Volkswagen, and he says, yeah, he says, a lot of people say they look like a snail. And he tells this joke about this guy who named his car an S, and he put a big S on the side of his car. And people said, why did you paint an S on the door of your car? He said, that way when I drive by, people can look at my car and go, hey, look at that S car go. Right? Get it? Because it looked like a snail. So he put an S there, and people would say, look at that S car go. Right? That's French, means snail. So I thought that was hilarious. So I ended up getting an orange bug that looked like a pumpkin. And then I ended up putting the thing on top and driving it around on Halloween, driving a pumpkin. And I would laugh, and I would say, I got to go home, or my pumpkin's going to turn into a pumpkin again. Right? My chariot's going to turn into a pumpkin. Because you remember that where what's her name had the chariot made of a pumpkin, and it still looked like a pumpkin with the stem on it with the horses, and then it would turn into a pumpkin. And if she was out past midnight, so I would say, I got to go home before my chariot turns into a pumpkin, and people would laugh, and it was fun. Okay, so I miss Paul, love him to death. I'll see him again. I miss his eyes, miss his sword, but we'll see. We'll meet up again in the next life or in the next world. Okay. So Law of One session number 62. I'm not even sure what it's about. I didn't even have time to preview it. I was too busy running around to get stuff done. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. Cinderella. Thank you, Denise. I couldn't think of her name at that moment, that particular second. Joanne, thank you. Cinderella. Yeah. Right. So I got to go home before midnight, or my car is going to turn into a pumpkin. And if I'm inside of it, I'll be stuck in this little teeny pumpkin. So I got to go home. Or I'll turn into a mouse. The engine's going to turn into mice, and the car's going to turn into a pumpkin. I got to get home. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead, and I'll do a sound check for the Law of One. You guys let me know if you can hear it okay. And I'll turn the sound up here because I know I'm going to have to. And we'll just get started on session number 62 of the Law of One, unless I prepped the wrong. Everything else has been going crazy today, unless I prepped the wrong file. Let's find out.
July 13th, 1981. 62.0 Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Before we begin, may we request that a circle be walked about this instrument, and let then each of the supporting group expel breath forcibly, approximately 2½ feet above the instrument's head, the circle then again being walked about the instrument. This was done as directed. I am Ra. We appreciate your kind cooperation. Please recheck the alignment of perpendicularity and we will begin. This was done as directed. I am Ra. We communicate now. 62.1 Questioner, could you tell me what was wrong or what caused the necessity for the rewalking of the circle and the purpose of the expelling of breath? Ra.
Okay, remember we talked about this last week about and then if you were in the class on Wednesday, we talked about that as well, casting a circle. And I explained that they actually did that with Carla doing the channeling. And so here now Ross talking about just that thing. So they actually literally used the Druid, pagan, Wiccan method of casting a circle to work in. And they actually have an altar. If you guys go to my Facebook page and look at photos, and if you go down far enough, because I haven't posted it again since, if you hit photos, then it's easier to just scroll the photos. There's pictures of Carla, actual pictures that they were taking while they were channeling. And there's a picture of her in the bed with the microphone sitting on her chest and a little recorder. And there's an altar behind her head where they have a Bible open to a certain verse. They got incense, candle burning, incense burning, and other things. So that's literally facing north. Okay. So the altar, so her head is laying organized north-south in respective to the planet, and the altar is behind her. All of that's being done on purpose. In fact, my bed is aligned the same way. I don't have an altar behind my head, but my bed is aligned the same way so that when I sleep, I'm in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, your bed should be facing to where when you lay down on it on your back, that's south behind you, or I'm sorry, yeah, that's south behind you and north to your feet. If you're on the northern hemisphere of the planet, it should be the other way around. You should be aligned with the North Pole and your feet facing south. To sleep, you will sleep better and you will have better dreams and abilities in your dreams than you would if you're facing east to west or some weird angle, or if you're facing south. You can look all that stuff up, but we've been teaching that for years, right? So who's this? Dale, welcome. Dale, welcome. Okay, so right now, Raw just said for them to rewalk the circle because they had done something slightly wrong, and Raw's going to explain about that to her. I didn't see Angetta. I didn't see, where is Angetta? Welcome, Angetta. I didn't see your name pop up in the chat. So you must not have said something, but Cassie must have got a notification that you were on there. or your name was up there and I didn't see it. Okay, so if you don't say anything, you're just here, and I can't say hi to you because I don't know you're here. I just see numbers. Okay, so yes, if you don't say anything in the chat, then I won't know you're here. The same thing over there on Instagram, right? Kathy's over there. Kathy Graves, that gives me a notification that she joined, but Kathy didn't say anything over there. So hopefully you're still watching over there, Kathy, or listening over there, Kathy. Okay, so oops, I'm on the wrong page here. Okay, so Raw's literally having them rewalk the circle, and Dawn just asked for a clarification as to why they just did that. So let that continue here.
I am Ra. This instrument was under specific psychic attack at the time of the beginning of the working. There was a slight irregularity in the words verbalized by your sound complex vibratory mechanisms in the protective walking of the circle. Into this opening came this entity and began to work upon the instrument, now in trance state, as you would call it. This instrument was being quite adversely affected in physical complex distortions. Thus the circle was properly walked. The breath of righteousness expelled the thought form and the circle again walked. 62.2 Questioner. What?
See, so this is why we teach this stuff to you guys, because if you're doing any kind of work and if first of all, if you start waking up and you start becoming unveiled, your vibratory pattern is at a higher level. Your light that glows off of you that you can't see, your aura changes, it becomes brighter. Your light becomes more indigo as you move into the indigo ray section of your own beingness, moving up into the crown chakra. As you're moving, as soon as you hit the throat chakra and start gaining that knowledge and moving up, you get that indigo color, and people are attracted to you, whether they're aware of it or not, but negative people are as well. So there's negative entities trying to disrupt Carla from communicating with Ra and trying to kill Carla. She's under psychic attack constantly. So that you just heard that there was a slight variation in the way that they walked the circle. And because of that, it didn't seal. Okay. The circle didn't seal. And because of that, there was an opening, and an entity came in through that opening and was literally trying to disrupt their communication. And so they had to clear out the space and rewalk the circle to get that energy out. I do that here to get the energy out when I do my show. Every time I go live on air, I do that. I literally push all negative energy out and move forward from there. Okay, let's continue. So you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be constantly aware of this kind of thing. And, my buddy Paul, who I believed, getting back to him real quick, I believed that he didn't just die of natural causes, even though in this physical plane, they said, we believe it was just natural causes. And I was like, no, the perfect storm happened. He didn't have any backup phones. He had just gotten rid of all of his phones, and then he lost his own phone. He didn't have a house phone. He couldn't call for help. It just seemed to me, all of my spider senses were like, I think he was killed. So I didn't really voice that to anybody, never to Pamela. And Ashley and Pamela are in the audience right now. They can tell you this. And he came through to them today, not more than an hour and a half ago, tops. Yeah, about an hour and a half ago. And because it's 3:30 now. So about 2 o'clock, thereabouts, just before 2 o'clock, somewhere around 1:30 our time, my time. And he said, I screwed up. Well, he said I fucked up. That's the way he talked. I fucked up, man. He says, and they got me. He said it wasn't natural causes, just like you thought. And she didn't know that I thought this because I'd never voiced that. And I've never talked about it out loud on air before. And some of us who were, mediums looked into it when I'm pretty sure that he was killed because of who he was and what he and I were working on in this lifetime. And he just came through today and said, they got me and made it look like an accident. Okay. And you were right, because I was always telling them, you got to have backups. You got to have a way to call for help if something happens to you and you can't go without, because what if? And he was like, well, I got 3 phones, bro. And I was like, okay. Well, then he gave one away to his son. Then he gave one away to his girlfriend. And then he had only one. And then he lost that when he was at work. I talked to him on a Saturday. Apparently they found him dead on Tuesday and said he died on Sunday. And I never got a report from a coroner because his brother doesn't talk to me anymore, and said, no, they said it was natural causes. And that was it. And he apparently didn't care enough to look into it past that. And I didn't voice to him that I thought anything otherwise. I just said, did they say how he died? And he said, they said natural causes. I'm like, was that mean heart attack, stroke, fell down, broke his neck? And he was like, I don't know. They said natural causes. And I was like, wow, this guy didn't even ask, what do you mean? When they told him natural causes. Because I asked. And he was like, yeah, no. They said natural causes. So I assume it was one of those things. And I was like, wow, that's how much he cared about his brother. He didn't even question when they said natural causes. What? Me, who wasn't his actual blood brother, asked that question of his blood brother, and his blood brother was like, yeah, they said natural causes. So I haven't spoken to his brother since. Okay, so let me continue here. So you have to be aware, let me get back on point with Raw. You have to be aware of what's going on. And if you're doing any work to where you're being in service to others and you're helping people, you become a target, whether you know it or not. And when you go out into public anyways, there's nastiness out there. If you're not aware that you can go out there and have things attached to you when you come home, like a disease. I mean, it's not literally, but you can have that happen too, right? You can go out in the world and get COVID and come home. You can go out and get a flu bug or a cold or some other kind of rhinovirus, right? So, but you get attachments from the other side as well. And people are not aware of that, and they don't know why their lives are icky and they don't feel good, or they're having problems, or their life is just crap and it's falling apart. They don't know that they had an attachment. Maybe somebody doesn't like them and somebody's cursing them. And people say, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm not superstitious. Then live your life. How's that working out for you? I'll become Dr. Phil. How's that working out for you? The next time you look at me and go, every time I take 1 step forward, it's 2 steps back. I'll go, yeah, that's because you're not paying attention to anything in your life and you have no idea what's happening to you. So have a nice day, right? But if you're doing this kind of work, you can't afford to do that because you are going to be constantly under psychic attack. You have to assume that. People are going to be hating on you, and that means that they hope bad things happen to you, whether you're aware of that or not. Okay, that's a form of magic, whether you want to admit it to yourself or anyone else. If people are like, I hope he dies, that means they're putting energy out there that you die some hideous way. Okay, that's karma. That's a karmic bond in the universe. This place is a place of manifestation. So if you have everybody in your life hating you and hoping you die, you have to be able to combat that. And if you don't have people on the other side combating that with you, and it's just you, it becomes you against the world. And you better be strong enough to be able to fend off all of that hate, because otherwise it's going to manifest around you. You have to be aware of that and know it, and then not be afraid of it, because one person can fend off all the evil people on this earth at one time. You don't have to be afraid of that. They want you to think that they're stronger and that you have to be afraid of that. You don't. And we teach that. And I've taught, you don't even know how many people I've taught that are like ghost hunters, and they're afraid of demons, and they're afraid. And I'm like, you need to realize that you are the rock star. First of all, you're alive. They're not. You create energy. They can't. Okay, let's start with that. Secondly, good is more powerful than evil. Evil doesn't want you to know that at all. They don't want you to know that, but it is. Okay. All right, let's continue here.
Was the nature of the thought form or its affiliation? Ra, I am Ra. This thought form was of Orion affiliation. 62.3 Questioner, was the attack successful in creating any further distortion of the instrument's physical complex? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 62.4 Questioner, what is the nature of this distortion? Ra, this thought form sought to put an end to this instrument's incarnation by working with the renal distortions which, although corrected upon time/space, are vulnerable to one which knows the way to separate time/space molding and space/time distortions which are being unmolded, vulnerable as before the, shall we say, healing. 62.5 Questioner.
So this entity was trying to murder Carla. Hi, Penny. Welcome.
What detrimental effect has been done? Ra, I am Ra. There will be some discomfort. However, we were fortunate in that this instrument was very open to us and well tuned. Had we not been able to reach this instrument and instruct you, the instrument's physical vehicle would soon be unviable. 62.6 Questioner, will there be any lasting effect from this attack as far as the instrument's physical vehicle is concerned? Ra, I am Ra. This is difficult to say. We are of the opinion that no lasting harm or distortion will occur. The healer was strong and the bonds taking effect in the remolding of these renal distortions were effective. It is at this point a question of two forms of the leavings of what you may call a spell or a magic working, the healer's distortions versus the attempt at Orion distortions, the healer's distortions full of love, the Orion distortions also pure in separation. It seems that all is well except for some possible discomfort which shall be attended if persistent. 62.7 Questioner, was the opening that was made in the protective circle planned to be made by the Orion entity? Was it a specific planned attempt to make an opening, or was this something that just happened by accident? Ra, I am Ra. This entity was, as your people put it, looking for a target of opportunity. The missed word was a chance occurrence and not a planned one. We might suggest in the, shall we say, future, as you measure space/time, as you begin a working, be aware that this instrument is likely being watched for any opportunity. Thus if the circle is walked with some imperfection, it is well to immediately repeat. The expelling of breath is also appropriate, always to the left. 62.8 Questioner.
So you need to be paying attention to that. This is why when teaching, because I used to teach, because I am a Merlin, you need to understand that I have that title. So I used to teach pagans, Wiccans, Druids how to cast spells. I used to write spells for people and charge money, right? If Celeste was here, we were talking about that last week when Celeste was here about writing spells and for other people and making sure that they understood that that there's no attachment to my karmic bond because I wrote a spell for you, and that you had to pay us for that so that you took on the responsibility of that spell. And then you also have to realize that you have now signed on to the karmic wheel, so that if you cast a spell against somebody's will, whatever comes back on anyone doesn't come back on me for being the writer, because you accepted that it is you. That's like saying, before you get on this app, you have to agree to our terms of use. So in doing so, we would teach people to not just go from memory, but write everything down and cast a circle while reading it, and be methodical until you get to the point where you're good enough to where you can then use a single word and you can project that entire sentence for a spell. So you can instantly cast a spell that might be 100 words long or 50 words long or 30 words long. If you can, eventually you'll get good enough to do that. When you start getting into magic with a K, right? Instead of just magic with a C, low magic is magic with a C, high magic is magic with a K. When you get into high magic, it becomes necessary for you to be able to instantaneously do stuff, because if not, if you ever read the Necronomicon, a couple of versions of it where you see all the spells that are written in those, most of those spells are from the Mesopotamian scrolls, and they tell you in there that you have to, it takes like 6 months to cast a spell. You have to be on the full moon at this particular day, on that full moon at the exact same time, at night, and then you have to say these words, and then you have to wait another month, and you have to do that. That was from 10,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, and you don't have to do that. You can. It makes those things a lot more powerful if you do still, and that's why you have a lot of people that are Wiccan, pagan, Druids that are what you would call like a Hasidic Jew, Hasidic pagan, ancient ways pagan, or druid or somebody casting a spell, and they will do that. They'll go skyclad to do this stuff, and they'll go out and dance around a bonfire. And I'm not saying that this stuff shouldn't be done, because in some instances those rituals are very important to do. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything about, because a lot of Wiccans or pagans would get mad at me if they thought that I was blasphemy, like the Christian churches would say when I go against their doctrine. I'm not trying to do that. But however, there are times when you can do a lot less instantly and still do a lot more without having to have this ritual that goes on. Like if you're trying to protect your house, yourself, your car, your kids, your, whatever, you don't have to do a 5-month, 6-month thing to cast a spell on your car to protect it. It doesn't take that much. I used to conduct a class once a month. We did it once a month at first, then we did it once a week, to where literally people would show up, and we would at this shop over in the Bay Area, and we would teach a class to anybody who wanted to show up, to teach you how you can cast spells in everyday life instantly. It takes preparation. If you go through the right steps to prepare and memorize things and walk through things, then you tend to not, if you make them really simple, you tend to not make mistakes. One word, here's the perfect example. This is why I went on that long tangent. One word spoken the wrong way or skipped changes, and you literally trying to cast a circle, you leave a gap in the circle. And literally, if you ever saw Star Wars Episode 1, which was movie number 4, and Qui-Gon Jinn was fighting against the Sith, not the Sith Lord, but they thought it was the Sith Lord, but it was the Sith. It was the apprentice. It was Darth Maul. And they ended up in this building where they got separated by this machine that was creating a shield. And so they got a wall of a plasma shield in between them. Qui-Gon Jinn sat down, knelt down, sat in the lotus position, and was meditating, waiting for the thing to open up. And Darth Maul was like a tiger, prancing back and forth, staring at him the entire time, like a lion or a tiger overlooking his prey. This is what Raw is telling you that entity was doing, was basically there, waiting for them to make a mistake. Just listening and watching and waiting for them to make a mistake in anything that they did, so that it could come in and try and murder Carla. One mistake in the word left a gap in the circle. They were unaware of it. It pounced and started trying to do damage to her, trying to kill her. Raw became aware of it, protected her, and then told Dawn to recast the circle. And then they did. Think about that. Sounds stupid, sounds crazy. If you don't know anything about magic, if you don't know anything about anything other than this mundane world and place of doing, everything I just said to you is completely insane, and it is not something that you would want to listen to. And you probably changed the channel already and moved about your business because you figured I'm crazy and I'm just making shit up. For those of you who are, let him who has the ears hear, let them who have the eyes to see. In this respect, you have to be aware of what's going on in your surroundings. And this is why I was teaching this forever. I still do. I just don't do it in a group anymore, where we used to teach that, but we still teach it, because it's necessary for you to know. If you're going to be a light worker of any kind, people even hate that term when you say love and light. They can't stand it. Anybody that says that to me, if they think they're awake, I'm going to make this statement for the world. If you think you're someone who's awake in any way, and you think you're someone who is powerful, and you're like, I'm a Wiccan priestess and I can't stand those people who say love and light. Do you know what that says to anyone who is in service to others? Anyone who is in any way partially unveiled? That says you are in service to self. You're a fraud, you're a liar, and you're in service to self. And the fact that bothers you, the only people that would bother, if I said to you, marry me, love and light, if that bothers you, you're evil, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. If it bothers you when I say that, I hate perky people. Anyone who says that, in service to self. Why? Because they don't like people who are in service to others, because everyone who is in service to others are usually perky people. Rarely are they not, and they're dark and brooding. I'm in service to others, but I hate the fucking world. Can't stand them. They're all stupid. That's the whole point. As I do my impersonation of the Grinch that what's his name did in the movies, right? He did a good job of that, by the way. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see the Cassie. See, take my glasses off. Next thing you know, there's a question. Where's Cassie's question here? Leo, can you please see Cassie's question? Thank you. All right, let me go up. Where is the question? I don't see it. Going up. What is the breath expelling? I was going to get to that. Thank you for making sure that I got on that. Okay, so that's actually really good. Thank you. You notice it's to the left. Okay. Left is where the devil's on your left shoulder. Right is where the conscience is on your right shoulder. Right? Conscious, not your consciousness, but your conscience. You will always get positive information coming from the right-hand side, negative information from the left-hand side. The expelling of the breath to the left is expelling positive energy as a protection against the left side, the negative side, right? So that's actually one of the greatest questions that anyone has ever asked most of the time. If I say that, I let Ross say it and I didn't get to it yet. Most people just don't even notice that he said that, but you picked up on it. Expelling the breath to the left at a certain points when you're saying certain things. You see some people do this sometimes when they're casting a spell or they're casting a circle, right? Because if you're on the northern hemisphere, you go clockwise as you cast your circle. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you go counterclockwise when you cast a circle. So when you're walking a circle, you're going to the clockwise, and you either start north or you start east, depending on your practice, how far east you are. And as you do that, sometimes you see them in movies where you'll see witches turn and spit to the left. In the Pirates of the Caribbean, they did that where they had to go around 3 times, and then they had to spit, and they had to touch their head and spin around, and then they had to spit. And if you look, they're kind of doing that. And if you look at some of the dances from the Celts, the Irish, you'll see that they do the tap, and then you'll see them look to the left and look to the right. And when they look to the left, they always will look to the left and down. It's the expelling of air, and they'll look to the right, but they'll look up as they're doing the tap dance, right? As they're doing the tap dance, they'll do it. And most cultures do that. So you see when they turn to the left, they're always looking down. Even the Japanese do that, right? When they turn to the right, they look up. When they turn to the left, they're looking down, because down is the underworld and up is heaven. So most cultures around the earth do that. And that's why you'll see them do that. Even the Japanese, when they're doing the kabuko stuff or the kabuki stuff, and you'll see them stop and they'll look, and bad guys always stop and look down to the left and then look back up at the audience. That is a cue to people in that culture that I'm an evil character. And then the other way, when they stop and they look up to the right and look at people, they're not evil. It's the opposite. So looking to the right is positive, looking to the left is negative, and the expulsion of the air to the negative side is the casting out of the negative energy as you're doing that. So that was one of the greatest questions, Cassie, and I'm glad that you guys got my attention and to have me answer that question. So that's why they were doing that. So as they're walking the circle, they're going clockwise, and they're expelling negative energy. So they're basically, you're chasing the negative energy when you go clockwise, or counterclockwise the other way around, but it's still negative energies to the left. So as you're walking the circle and you're casting the circle, all negative energy is running away from you, but they're going to get crunched from where you started. That's why you always start at a north if you're in the northern hemisphere, or east if you're in the northern hemisphere, depending on which style that you have been taught. But most of the time, it's you start north and you go around to the east, south, west, and back to north, and that squeezes and chases the negative out. But any negative energy that tries to get behind you in any way to try and stay as close to you, so that when the circle closes, they can try and stay inside, you're casting the breath back over your shoulder to that side, and that expels the negative energy and pushes them to keep them in that northern spot and then you come and they have to get out of the circle, or they get clamped in. And when they get clamped in and it closes on them, they get expelled. And if they're demons, they end up getting kicked back. They get expelled to hell. Okay, they actually get expelled. So because it's a bubble that's happening, and when it closes, you can't stay in it. But if you forget to expel that negative as you're going at the cardinal points, when you do it, that's also, and see, this is part of what we teach, is not only the words that you do, the way that you stand, whether or not you're using tools, if you're using a dagger or a sword or a wand or a staff, or just a censer with some sort of incense in there, so that changes what you do and the wording. But you have to step a certain way, you have to move a certain way, you have to speak a certain cadence. You can't speak fast. You have to keep your cadence at the same rate the entire time, and chanting is very good, right? Chanting is very good. Yes, let me put this up, right? Joanne said, as breath can cleanse your aura. That's so you're expelling negative, you're giving positive breath and pushing out the negative, and it's also cleansing yourself and your aura at the same time, but you're protecting yourself from the negative, and you're literally kicking the negative out, letting it know that you're doing this on purpose to chase it out. You can do it with sage. If you get white sage and you go around your house saging, that's the breath. That's the dragon's breath. If you know anything about the Druid way, that's Anal Nathrak. That's the breath of the dragon. That's what that means. Anal Nathrak means the breath of the dragon, and that's the breath of the dragon that you're waving. It's the smoke from the breath of the dragon that you're waving, and everybody around the world uses it. The Native Americans grew it. The best sage on the earth is grown here, unless you grow some. The white sage that was naturally growing in the United States. There's green sage, blue sage, white sage. White sage is the most powerful. And if you've ever been saged, you know what I'm talking about. If you're Native American, you know what I'm talking about, right? So yeah, so that's the dragon's breath. Anal Nathrak, that's the breath of the dragon. It's literally what it translates to. So it means the of nature. It's the physical plane, and it's the energy of the physical plane, which is the beast. So Anal Nathrak is, I'm calling upon the breath of the beast, which is this place, nature, right? I write about that. I'm writing about that in my second book that I'm currently writing. I'm in the middle of writing that and translating for people. I just looked it up last week. Anal Nathrak Uthvaspeitho Dothio Dienve. That's the Irish version. The Welsh I spoke before. You guys heard me do that. The Welsh is a little harder to speak, but it sounds more pretty. It's so beautiful. And then the translation of that, and people are like, it doesn't really mean anything because it means like the breath of the serpent or the snake. And I'm like, okay, this person is trying to translate language that they don't even know any lore. They don't know anything about the religion itself. But you can look that up, and some people have it translated without giving you the full details of it. They're giving you the direct translation. So literally, Anal Nathrak means the breath of the dragon, dragon's breath. That's the spark of life. That's pneuma. That word pneuma in Greek means the breath of God. Anal Nathrak means the breath of God. It means the same thing. It's just different language. People don't know that, right? So that's why I'm writing about that in the second book that I'm currently writing, which will probably be out in 2 years or 3 years, depends, right? And then breathing itself, right? Cassie said, let me put this up on the screen. She says, I'm really focused on daily breath work routine in the last 3 weeks or so. Learning to breathe properly is very important. You hear guys like Deepak Chopra talking about waking up in the morning and doing breath exercises. Just doing breath exercises can enhance your body's ability. It speeds up your metabolism, turns everything on. He'll tell you the best thing to do is then get up and have a BM. Breath exercises and get your body moving, and then get up and have a BM, because it gets your whole entire body on the inside moving now. And then you start going about your day. And then if you do some physical exercise for 5 or 10 minutes, it keeps your entire body turned up on high for the rest of the day. Learning how to breathe properly is so important to learn how to, and so we would teach this too. Every time I would go to a drum circle or anywhere, we would teach people how to meditate. And the first thing we teach you is how to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, but for how long, and hold for how long, and expel it for how long. All of that's important. And the way that you're relaxed is important as well. So posture, relaxation, learning to breathe changes and cleanses you and grounds you and focuses you in a way that people are unaccustomed to and don't even know about. And then if you cleanse your aura, even with the breath, and then if you do it by sage, it changes the entire atmosphere of the room, not let alone your perception of the atmosphere of the room. And people are like, oh, it's just because I'm breathing in the smoke. No, it's not. I can do it without that smoke. Okay, so people would say, that's just me breathing the sage and getting kind of high. No. Okay, so next time you guys come next week and we'll do it without the sage, and I'll show you that the effect is still the same, because it's not the sage itself that's doing it. I can literally just go and blow on you, and you're going to have the same thing. And I'm not going to have anything in my, except I might have a mint in so that my breath doesn't smell bad when I blow in your face. Right. Breath with Sandy. I don't know who she is, but if she's if you like it, she's probably teaching the right way. If it's working for you, then that means she is teaching the right way. I don't know who she is, but if it's something that someone's teaching on YouTube, and if they have a lot of likes or a lot of watches, it's because they're doing it properly. Breathing techniques are important for life, right? It's like water. If you don't have water and you're transmuting energy of any kind, then you're going to burn yourself up. And if you don't have sugars in you, you're going to have some afterwards. If you don't breathe properly, you can't get your body moving to move energy. Being a Reiki master teacher, I have to know that. You have to know that there too. You learn that as well. You can't transmute Reiki energy properly if you're not breathing properly. If your body's not balanced and your chakras aren't balanced, you can't cast spells properly. And if you're doing it and you're a novice and you have no practice and you have no, it's like a batter going up to the base to bat, and he's never been in a batting cage and he has no technique whatsoever. He's going to strike out every single time until he learns technique. Same thing happens when you're trying to cast spells, or you're trying to protect yourself, or you're trying to do anything. If you don't have a technique to help you with a routine, then you're just blindly going in and trying, I'm going to try and do a target shoot. I've never shot a gun in my entire life, and now I have to shoot somebody at 100 yards away with a scope. You're going to miss, and you're going to be a dead guy, like the one that tried to kill the Donald Trump. And that guy practiced, but he didn't practice under stress, right? They'll tell you, like, if you're learning how to play basketball, the professional basketball players will tell you need to, if you're practicing shooting baskets, you need to go out and run a mile before, do calisthenics, and get your heart rate up, because when you're playing a basketball game, you're going to be running up and down the court. You might be out there for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, running up and down that court, moving around and jumping and doing all that. So you're going to have oxygen deprivation happening to you. Okay, so you need to be, if you want to learn how to shoot, you have to tax yourself and get yourself into that exact same scenario to improve shooting a basketball and making a basket. First, you have to practice doing it, but then you also have to be doing it under the stressed conditions, because if you don't do it under stressed conditions, then you're going to be tired and you're going to be shooting and you're going to miss, and you're going to go, how come I make them every time when I'm practicing? Because when you're practicing, your oxygen level is at 99 or 100. When you're out here now, it's down to about 95 or 94, and maybe less, depending on whether you just ran down the court back and forth 3 or 4 times and then tried to go for a shot. That's the reason why all of these things are important. I could teach an entire class, probably write a whole book just on that, honestly, because of all the experience that I have and all the knowledge that I have. I could write probably an entire book just teaching people about casting spells and why they need to learn what they need to learn. Who knows? Maybe I'll do that at some point and just go crazy and write all that stuff down and sell it to people, right? Right? Cassie said it's crazy how much energy you can feel going through your whole body. Yeah. I mean, and especially if you open up all the capillaries because you're breathing properly and all the oxygen is able to swell up and your body has enough liquid in there to then move everything through your body. And then all of a sudden you start pulling all this energy in and you're transmuting the energy. And if you're a Reiki practitioner, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a healer, and just moving that energy through, the amount of energy that you can hold is insane. You can get all freaking just spinning like you're on crack from the energy that you get, that you can absorb. You have so much energy, you have to expel some, otherwise you're just like, I am Cornholio. You put your head up, your shirt up. I am Cornholio. Give me TP from my bumhole. You can like get all skirked out of your head like that if you're not careful. Right. Wool Rider DJ, what's up? DG, what's up? Welcome. So yeah, right. So you have to be careful. Okay, so let me get back on point with the law of one. So they had to rewalk the circle because they messed up a line, and because of that, a negative entity actually entered in and was trying to kill Carla, and so Ra had them rewalk the circle so they could continue. Let's continue.
Would you expand on what you just said about the expelling of breath? I wasn't quite sure what you meant. Ra, I am Ra. The repetition of that performed well at this working is advisable if the circle is walked in less than the appropriate configuration. 62.9 Questioner, but you mentioned the expelling of the breath to the left, I believe. Would you tell me what you meant by that? Ra, I am Ra. It is as you have just accomplished, the breath being sent above the instrument's head from its right side to its left. 62.10 Questioner, is there anything we can do for the instrument after she...
See, so coming from the positive side, going to the negative side, again, expelling the breath across from the positive, making sure to push out any negative energy that might be there, energy that might be there bothering her. Do you see? All right, let's continue.
Comes out of trance to help her recover from this attack. Ra, I am Ra. There is little to be done. You may watch to see if this...
Here's a good question. Well, not just with the law of one, but with the laws of nature in itself. So the question is, with the law of one, is there a way to bring good fortune for one's family? Not with, you wouldn't find any of that information in reading any of the 6 books of the law of one, unless you knew where to look for it. Okay. Good fortune is one of those things where you have to be careful. If you're asking for good fortune, you have to be very specific as to what you're asking for. Like, let me win the lottery. That's not going to happen. So it depends on what you mean by good fortune. If you're saying protect people so that they wouldn't have negative things happen to them, now you're being more specific in your intention. Everything is intention, intention, intention. We say that all the time, right? Intent, intent, intent. Your intention in your manifestation is going to be the outcome. So the more detail that you can have in the intent, the more positive that coming from the heart is. I want to protect my family. I want to reflect negative energy that would be trying to do damage to my family. And then you have to choose where that negative energy is going to go. Do you reflect it back to the universe and just give it over to the universe itself? Or do you reflect it to the, return to sender, send it back to the person? So you have to be careful exactly what it is that your intent is, right? So yeah, you mean just to the positive things happen. Yeah. So that has to do with manifestation, right? Being positive, being a positive person, and you're trying to protect your family, even if they're unaware of it. And you want them to not, you want them to be protected from negative energy or that kind of stuff. There's still going to be chance because they have free will. So if you say you have a brother who's an alcoholic and you say, I want to protect him so that he doesn't end up doing something stupid and killing himself, he still has free will. He can still jump off the roof of that house when he's drunk and fall to his death and die. So you have to realize that if you do that and he does that, it's not your fault. And if somebody, say is giving you a spell to help that, and that your brother chooses to do something stupid and he dies, you can't go back and go, well, you gave me a spell of protection and it didn't work. Well, he has free will. So you have to account for that as well and realize that. But it's all about your intention. You have to, it's not taught in the law of one, because the law of one is a generalized information of ascension and the afterlife and what's going on. So Raw's not focusing on the mundane down here, except for when it comes to making sure that Carla doesn't die so they can continue. And they explain that, but not in as much detail as I've gone into with them, and why that is necessary and how to do those things. Okay. If Dawn doesn't ask the question, then there won't be an answer to that. But there are, absolutely. And and you have to, like I said, you have to have the intention of wanting to protect your family and for their greater good, even if they're not aware of it. You can always ask their higher self, because some people will tell you don't play with that crap and that idea, because that's magic and therefore it's evil, because religions will teach you that. And I am a minister of 4 different religions, 2 Christian ones. So don't think that I'm, some atheist and somebody get mad at me because I'm, because I'm saying that, oh, you're just anti-religion. No, I'm a minister. So they don't want you doing anything that they're not in control of. And it's not all of the people in the church. It's the people at the top that have created that have been corrupted to create the curriculum the way it is, so that you have to look for it. It's still there in all religions, in all of the Talmuds. All of the information is there for you to find in any religion, even if you don't want to have anything to do with the religion. Every single doctrine that is a spiritual practice has that information still in it. You just have to know where to look. That's why they have keywords that are highlights in there, like "let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast," because that's a highlight telling you there's something that is important here. Pay attention. And they do that. Whatever religion you have or have had in your life, you'll find that they do that. Raw doesn't really have any kind of thing. That's why I'm interpreting, because Raw is just giving the information, and there's so much that is being given that should be translated for people, and that's why I'm bringing that up. So yeah, it's there, but you need to know where to look. You would be better to look at things here in the mundane to find that, or talk to people like myself who can teach you that, because I've literally spent 35 years of my life, probably 37 years of my life now, at least 37 years, because I'm 57 now, right? So 37 years would be on, I was 27, so it's longer than that. So it's almost for 40 years, probably 40 years of my life teaching this to people, okay? But you would have to, that's a really long conversation. If you rewind and listen to some of the things that I said after this session's over here, talking about casting circles and spells, you'll hear the answer to what you were saying there. But yes, it's not really in the law of one so much in any of the 6 books, because he doesn't teach anything mundane down here. Everything that Ra is teaching is, this is the way it actually, the universe, this is how the universe is operating. This is why the universe operates this way. And this is the big picture of the universe. So everything else that is happening on a 3rd dimensional level changes depending on the structure of the 3rd dimensional planet. Slightly, the physics changes slightly, and the belief systems change slightly, but the overall grand scheme is always the same. So Ra didn't in any way give information for the mundane in most of what they were saying, only unless it pertained to the bigger picture. So you won't find, how do I protect myself? How do I sage myself? Techniques that we do down here. That's why people like me are down here on the planet. We're down here to teach you that stuff. So it's out there. You can find it. And if you don't, message me afterwards and I can give you some places to go look, or I can give you more information. But it is there in all the places here on Earth. Look up the shaman things, Native American shamans, anybody that has that kind of culture, the Scots, the Irish, that have that kind of culture. But all cultures have protective energies and incantations, including everyone, South American, everyone, literally, even as far east as the Chinese, Japanese, Mongolians, Aborigines in Australia. Every culture has their version that you'll find are very similar, almost identical. And that's what I was talking about earlier. That's why I said rewind, and you'll kind of get a little bit more insight from what I said earlier. Right, Joanne says putting out positive, right? Let me put that up on the screen. Putting out positive, right? Gratitude and love will attract an abundance. So yeah, your focus determines what you get. So if you're a positive person and you put out positivity, you get that return to you. That's why as you start to wake up and become unveiled, your circle gets smaller and smaller of the amount of people around you, because more people think you're crazy, because they're all living in the 3D, and they think the things you say, they're like, that person's nuts, right? Because it sounds foreign to them. So the same thing, what will happen is if you choose to be in service to others, you will start repelling people who are in service to self and start attracting people that are in service to others. And that's just what happens. As soon as you pick a side, that you become like a battery, and you have this part of you that's polarized now to one side or the other. And you will find that if you're in service to self, you repel people that are in service to others, and draw in people that are in service to self, right? What is it Ashley says here? Pamela here, I just put, Pamela's typing now. Pamela here, I just put out a positive. Let me put it up on the screen for you to see who can read it, and I'll read it to those of you listening on the MP3 broadcast, right? Pamela said, I just put out positive and love with the protection bubbles, and nearly word for word there I asked to protect the people I have chosen in my life and the friends, and then I never would wish any harm on others, as I do what I don't want anything coming back on me tenfold. Trust the universe and be kind and loving, and help educate those that know not what they do. Right. So you literally, it's easier. And this is the first thing we teach, is exactly what Pamela was saying. When you start to reflect negative energy, first thing we teach you is just reflect it. You don't have to send it back to the person, because you do what thou wilt, but harm none is the motto of light workers. Whereas people that are in service, that's people in service to others, and people who are in service to self, or dark magic workers, they will say, do what thou wilt. You see how they left off the and harm none part of it, and that's what that's their motto. So if your intention is to harm none, then you don't want to wish any ill will on even the people who are sending ill energy or hate towards you. That is the meaning of when Jesus said, turn the other cheek. That's what that meant. It didn't mean let somebody punch you and then show them your other face and let them punch you there too. People go, well, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to punch me on that side of my face. That's not what that meant. Turn the other cheek meant, and then followed up with do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Both of those lessons from those Bibles, from those three religions, being Christianity, Judaism, and Muslimism, all based on the Talmuds given to Moses. All of that doctrine and that ideology is not about letting people take advantage of you and beating you up. It's about not being like them. 10 Commandments, for instance, that was given to Moses. Okay. It's about not doing bad things for the sake of goodness. That's the story of Santa Claus, right? So be good for goodness sake. Santa Claus is coming to town. You get rewarded if you love thy neighbor, right? That comes right from what? Jesus, right? Love thy neighbor. So even the people who hate you, you need to love them as well. Now my ministry's coming out. Okay, so you literally have to look at that, and that's why I always word it in a different way and say you have to allow a person to be the way they're going to be. And if somebody's evil, you have to allow them to do that. If somebody's still asleep and you're starting to wake up, you have to allow them to do that. And that was where when Jesus on the cross said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's what he meant. It's not their fault. None of this is their fault. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing here, and they're in their place of development, whatever they have chosen is their path. And you have to allow them to do that and love them anyways, even though they hate you or wish you ill on you. And that positiveness is the defense in and of itself. And this is why Ra teaches in the Law of One, how do you combat evil when they're attacking you? You combat them with the love and the light of the infinite creator. That is a brick wall that they cannot penetrate just by simply doing that. Right. And that's why you hear people say the power of Christ compels you, or Jesus loves you, right? Or peace be upon you, right? Peace be with you, peace be upon you, right? Allah Akbar, right? And it is good to praise God. It is right to praise God, right? So that's why those sayings are in these different languages, right? It's because those words mean things. Talk to the hand, that comes from the energy expelled, the chi, the ki energy expelled from the hand, positive energy, putting up a barrier. That's where that comes from. Talk to the hand goes back thousands of years of people, the golden palm, the strike of positive energy to stop people from attacking, right? And that's why healers have that duck palm. I don't know if you can see it on my hand right there on camera. That's why we have that star in our hand, the duck palm. Let me see if I can put it up in this one. You can probably see it better. Depends on the lighting. The reason that we have that is because that's the positive. That's a sign of positive. So if you put your hand up to somebody and you wave, that's where waving comes in. First of all, I don't have a weapon. And then you would go and shake hands because you don't have a weapon. You're showing that you don't have a weapon. So you would put your hand up. But also, if you put your hand up and if you don't see, you can see negative people, you should look at the palm of their hand and see what you see there, right? There's a difference. So positive people can identify other positive people when they put their hand up. Show me your hand, right? Put your hands up. Hands up shows I have no weapon, but that's not where it started, right? It started before that with whether you're a positive or negative person. And then again, if you have a sword or a dagger or a gun these days, put your hands up. The cops want you to, they want to see your palms. Most people don't realize that that's where it started. It started in more myth, more magic than it did physical. But then also you can see if they have a weapon in their hand, if they show you your hands. Let me see your hands. Show me your hands. Hands up. Let me see your hands. Right. So there's a reason for everything. And it's usually rooted in something that is more spiritual than people realize. But in the mundane, it has a reason too. If you have your hands up like this and there's no gun in it or knife in it or weapon in it, then you're not as much of a threat unless you are really good at martial arts. Then your physical body is a weapon. You know what I mean? Lethal weapon, like the movie. All right, let's continue here.
Distortions persist and see that the appropriate healers are brought into contact with this mind/body/spirit complex in the event that difficulty persists. It may not. This battle is even now being accomplished. Each may counsel the instrument to continue its work as outlined previously. 62.11 Questioner: who would the appropriate healers be, and how would we bring them in contact with the instrument? Ra, I am Ra.
Well, Denise, it depends on how you're holding it up. If you have the lines that make the M, that's one significant thing. But I'm talking about if you look here, you can see a duckbill facing upwards. Let me see if I can trace it on camera so you can see what I'm doing. I can't do it without looking at the camera. Everything's backwards. So let me look here. If you look here, there's the duck paw in my hand that is right there. That if you maybe when I get up closer, you can see it better. Let me see. Let me make my hand hot. See, now you're seeing it better. Let me make my hand glow, so you can see that everything in the center here will make up that. That's the star that you see in the hand of Ashtar when they always show that. It's actually supposed to be that because the line comes at the bottom, and so it's actually makes the star in the hand. That's the healer's mark. That any person that is a healer, and some people that are natural healers have that before they get tuned to say Reiki or something like that. Some people call it an upside down M. Some people call it a W. Some people call it a duck bill or a duck paw because it looks like a duck foot from the bottom. If you take a duck and lift up their foot, it looks like a duck foot. Some people just call it a star. But if you have the lines in your hand make up an M, that's a different, that has to do with things too. And Peter GV from South Africa, if he was here, he'd probably start talking about that because he used to post that where you can look it up where if you have X's at the right places in your hands, witches marks and magic user marks, and whether you have a long lifeline and all these different things, and some of the marks that you get in the fingers here and up here and all of that. And he and I used to compare all of those. And we were all, when we started researching it, we were surprised at how much we actually how many of those things we actually had, and we didn't realize that. And we were like, wow, we have like all of those things that are everything on our hands, and we were even unaware of it at the time for some of them as well. Okay, here, let's continue. So hopefully that answered your question that you were asking before. Did I miss anybody else asking a question? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Yeah. That has been the truth of my soul experience. Yeah, I mean, that's literally, you have to realize that some people say do unto others before they do unto you. That's somebody who's self-serving. Who would say that? That philosophy is I should kick your ass before you kick my ass. I should murder you before you murder me. That's somebody who's in service to self. Otherwise, your whole ideology would be do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So that means don't do bad things to people because you wouldn't want people to do bad things to you. And that karmic wheel, if you're positive, you put out positive energy that changes everybody's energy around you and the planet. The more people that are in service to self, and then the more people that propagates, and the more people that are in service to others, the more that propagates. So this is why we teach you to be the change. Hashtag be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Fix yourself, look into yourself, and do the shadow work and fix yourself. Because by doing that, that's going to change your vibration to the positive. People around you are going to notice that. All of your tastes and all of your things are going to change. You're going to change what you eat. You're going to change what you watch on television or movies, books you read, music you listen to. All your tastes will change. And then people will see a different energy coming off of you, and that exudes energy out to them as well. And so people around you that may be in service to others as well will then go, I'm going to be more like that person. That person's like perky and always in a good mood. And what's your secret? Well, my secret is being nice to each other. You know, that's why that line was in Eric the Viking when they went to Hive Brazil, and they're like, well, we don't, they're like, what is that you have? And this is a sword. And they're like, no, you got to put that away. And he was like, well, how do you guys not get in a fight or kill anyone? And the king says, well, for starters, no killing. It made perfect sense to all the people that were living there, right? That how do you not kill anyone? Well, for starters, no killing. You just don't do it. Put down your weapon. You're less apt to kill somebody with it. If you're not aggressive, you're not going to get into a fight. If you're not trying to rob people, there won't be a fight. If you're in service to others, you will be okay with peace. If you're in service to self, you can't stand peace, and you want to use that to your advantage. These people are unarmed, unaware. I have to kill them, rape them, pillage them, take advantage of them, and steal their shit. Do you see? That's someone who's in service to self. They have to do that. Jacqueline Taylor. Hello, gorgeous. She said, hello, gorgeous. Welcome. There's Jacqueline. She just popped in. Welcome, sister. So your ears must have been burning. We weren't talking about you, but we were putting out a bunch of positive energy talking about that kind of stuff, and you popped in. All right, let's continue with the law of one.
There are four. The difficulty being at all noticed as bodily distortion. The one known as Don and the one known as Jim may work upon the instrument's bodily complex by means of the practices which are developing in each entity. Given persistence of distortion, the one known as Stuart shall be seen. Given the continued difficulty past the point of one of your cycles called the fortnight, the one known as Douglas shall be seen. 62.12 Questioner, does the instrument know who these people are, Stuart and Douglas? I don't know who they are. Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 62.13 Questioner, is that the sum total of what we can do to aid the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. We may note that the harmonies and loving social intercourse which prevails habitually in this group create a favorable environment for each of you to do your work. 62.14 Questioner, what priority, shall I say, does the Orion group place upon the reduction of effectiveness or elimination of effectiveness of this group with respect to activities on planet Earth at this time? Can you tell me that? Ra, I am Ra. This group, as all positive channels and supporting groups, is a greatly high priority with the Orion group. This instrument's bodily distortions are its most easily unbound or unloosed distortion, dissolving the mind/body/spirit complex if the Orion group is successful, this particular group having learned to be without serious chinks, may we say, in mind and spirit complex vibratory patterns. In other channels other chinks may be more in evidence. 62.15 Questioner, I'll make this statement and you correct me. The Orion Group has as an objective the bringing of service to self-polarized entities to harvest, as great a harvest as possible. This harvest will build their potential or their ability to do work in consciousness as given by the distortion of the law of one called the law of squares or doubling. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct.
Funny that Ra starts mentioning the law of squares, and Jacqueline's here to hear that, right? Because that's one of Jacqueline's favorite things to talk about. We've had many long conversations about the law of squares, right? Isn't that crazy cool? And then one time Ra mentions it, Jacqueline is actually in the audience listening. The law of squares.
62.16 Questioner, are there other groups of those who are on the service to self path joined with those from the Orion constellation? For instance, those of Southern Cross, are they presently working for the same type of harvest with respect to Earth? Ra, I am Ra. These you mention of Southern Cross are members of the Orion group. It is not, shall we say, according to understood wording that a group from various galaxies should be named by one. However, those planetary social memory complexes of the so-called Orion constellation have the upper hand and thus rule the other members. You must recall that in negative thinking there is always the pecking order, shall we say, and the power against power in separation. 62.17 Questioner.
But you have to realize a lot of people think, well, that means that everybody that comes out of Orion, which is actually 26 universes, not to mention galaxies, are evil. That's just not true, right? So if you're in third dimension, no matter where you are in the multiverses, there's going to be a dynamic on your specific planet that is going to be a percentage of positive and negative people. That varies depending on the planet and the ecosystem that they have. And on this one, it's 86% in positive in service to self, 14% in service to self. 86 positive in service to others, 14% negative in service to self. On this planet. On other planets, it's different. We have kind of one of the higher amounts, by the way, at 14%. It's kind of high. People don't know that. However, they're referring to the Orion Crusaders when they're talking about coming from Orion. Not every single being that's from there, because not every being in any city, in any room, is going to be evil. So you can't look at, because if that were the case, then people, will look at every single Jewish person and say they killed Jesus, who was also in fact Jewish, right? Because he was crucified, right? I mean, the truth is the Romans crucified him. It was just the Pharisees and 14 of them, not all of them, who decided that. They did it for political reasons. They didn't hate Jesus. They just did it for power, to have control. So you have to realize that people are somewhere in that range of in service to self and in service to others in their development. And you have to allow them to be that way. So you can't just assume that if somebody, like everybody, in the 1940s, everybody in America looked at every single Japanese person and said they're all evil because they attacked Pearl Harbor. You can't just murder everybody that's Japanese. They went around and arrested everybody in this country that was Japanese and put them in a prison, in a concentration camp. And they had to pay reparations after that because most of those people were not party to what was going on just because of their race. So you can't look at that. It's just like here in the United States now, there's a lot of people that are calling for reparations for African Americans. Well, the truth is less than 10% of the population of African Americans in this country are descendants of slaves currently. So you can't say across the board everybody who's African descent gets money, because then you have to decide what's the percentage of that. Is it anybody that has like any percent? Because now that raises the population of people that are going to get paid to everybody that's the 90% of the population, because only people who have the Rh negative factor don't have African DNA. So now is everybody get paid? Then who pays for that? Because the only way that money comes from taxes. So then that cancels itself out because everybody who's paying has to pay taxes to pay everybody, because you can't charge only the people, the 10% that have a Rh negative factor in their DNA, because they're not African. So did any of them ever own slaves, or any of their parents or grandparents or great grandparents ever own slaves? So who do you charge? Do you only give the people who are descendants of slaves money from only the people who are descendants from slave owners? Well, now you're holding them accountable for something they never even did. Do you see? So that whole ideology, all the people got reparations at the time, or should have, and if they didn't, it was a travesty. That doesn't mean that they're owed money now comparable to however much money it was then, because, right? I mean, you can't look at it that way, because then the truth is, you have to then go, okay, well, Africans were slaves, but now what about the Chinese people that were enslaved here? What about the Irish people that were enslaved here? What about the Scottish people that were enslaved here? What about all the other races that were enslaved? And people are like, those people weren't enslaved. Yeah, they were. You can look that up. There were other people that were enslaved. When the Irish people got off the boat from Ireland and came over to the United States, and they even made a movie called Far and Away. You should look it up. True story. When the men and the women got off the ship, the men got off and were sent this way to the left, and the women were sent to the right. Welcome to America. You guys are now slaves in America. The men join the military and go out and kill Native Americans for us. And they have 5 years indentured servitude to the federal government. If you survive all that, you get to be free and you get to be an American citizen. Meanwhile, your wife is now an indentured servant, and she gets to go and work in one of our houses. Okay, being a maid, a cook, and be raped over and over, and possibly by the time you get back, you could have 4 or 5 kids from the master, and your wife is now had gotten pregnant by her, and at the end of that 5 years, she's let go and freed. Okay, you can look that up. So everybody that came into this country that were not the aristocrats, the oligarchs who owned everything in the United States and the government, enslaved every race that came in here. So if you're going to pay reparations to one race, you got to pay reparations to all. And that's just America. And then if you extrapolate out from that, you're going to find out Viking people had slaves of their own people and anyone else that they came in contact with. And then if you say, well, let's be honest about how slaves came into being, well, then you would have to go and get mad at the African people, because they never allowed any other race to land on Africa. And they went around and knocked over their own people in the head, captured their own people, and then sailed them out and sold them to people out in the harbor. So Africans created the slave trade of African people. And then stupid European white people bought them from them and then took them and sold them to other people. Okay? And then if you look at the Japanese people, well, this goes all the way back to Greek. You had the Greek hoplites at the time in the 300. Those people were trained from the time they were like 5 years old to become warriors. And their right of manhood was to sneak out in the middle of the night and murder a slave, which was other Greek people. They were called the Eloi. They were all slaves. Murder one of them and not be seen by anyone else and make it back to the camp. And then you were a warrior and a man, and that was your right of manhood. Murder a slave so that you got your first kill and not get caught. Okay, so when you had a station, when you were born, you were either an Eloi, which is a slave, or a hoplite. The hoplite were the warriors. Okay, so every culture had this. The Japanese samurai had the same culture. You were either shogun, samurai, or you were a slave. Same thing happened. Okay, so if you're gonna start going down that road, just because America fought a war to end the slavery with black people here from Africa, doesn't mean that not everybody else didn't already have those issues. And America wasn't the last country to abolish slavery, by the way. There was 6 or 7 countries after America that still had African slaves. Okay, Italy was one of the last. Should look it up. Okay, so my point is that you have to look at the dynamic of a place. Now I'll get back to Ra. You have to look at the dynamic of a place and the people and realize that not everybody is evil, and you can't blame one entire species or race. It's racism to blame one region of the world And then why would you, if you're going to blame, like a city next to yours, well, all those guys over there are evil, we should go kill them. That's the way people used to think on this earth. And now it's gotten bigger and bigger until it was entire races, entire countries. And then what happens? Then all of the people from Earth start going after and killing people on another planet because we see them as evil. That's the mundane ideology of people in service to self. They'll have you do that. Those guys are evil. We got to go kill them. Look at the movie Starship Troopers, where they were like, we got to go and kill the arachnids. And it turned out the arachnids weren't actually evil. They were trying to defend themselves because the Earth was coming to attack. But the problem was that if you ever read the books, the problem was that someone told the arachnids that the Earth were going to come and kill them. And so they launched a preemptive strike on the Earth, and that got the Earth to come and try and kill them. And that entire thing was being done, which you don't know unless you've read the books, was being done by another race who wanted to conquer both the humans on Earth and the arachnids. And they wanted them to kill each other off and weaken each other so that they could then go there and take over both of those home worlds, which is basically what the Nazis were doing to the Japanese, the Mexicans, and the Americans. The Japanese were to attack Pearl Harbor. The Mexicans were supposed to invade on land, and the Germans were waiting for America to weaken both the Mexicans and the Japanese and themselves. And the Germans, when they got done with Europe, were going to come over to take over the Americas. And they were going to come into the United States first and work their way down to take all of South America. And at the same time, they went down and took Argentina, and they were going to work up and meet in the middle and take over the whole world. That was their plan. We know that now from history. So they did the exact same thing. Got the Japanese coming after the Americans, and then got the Mexicans, but the Mexicans said, I don't want to have any part of it. And they didn't invade on land, and a good thing that they didn't. And then the Japanese did attack, and some people say America was behind it. There was probably people in America that was behind it that were Germans that people didn't realize were Germans, right? Kind of hard to hide as a German if you're, or kind of easy to hide if you're a German, if you come to a place where everybody looks like you, right? Same thing the other way around. Okay, so you have to realize that not everybody is evil just because they come from a specific place. You have to look at individually the planets, individually if you're in third dimension, and once you move into 4D, 5D, 6D in the real physical place, then that becomes less and less and further apart. And then you can look at an entire planet and go, those people are all good and those people are all evil over there, because the separation gets further apart than it does here in 3D. So you have to realize that when you're down here. Okay, let's continue.
By creating as large a harvest as possible of negatively oriented entities from Earth, then, the social memory complex of the Orion group gains in strength. Am I correct in assuming this strength then is in the total strength of the complex, the pecking order remaining approximately the same, and those at the top gaining in strength with respect to the total strength of the social memory complex? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. To the stronger go the greater shares of polarity. 62.18 Questioner, then what do the ones at the top of the pecking order of the Orion group? Well, let me first ask this, are we talking about the fourth density group now? Ra, I am Ra. There are fourth and a few fifth density members of the Orion group. 62.19 Questioner, then is the top of the pecking order fifth density? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 62.20 Questioner, what is the objective? What does the, shall we say, the leader, the one at the very top of the pecking order in fifth density Orion, have as an objective? I would like to understand his philosophy with respect to his objectives and plans for what we might call the future or his future. Ra, I am Ra. This thinking will not be so strange to you. Therefore, we may speak through the densities as your planet has some negatively oriented action and sway at this space/time nexus. The early fifth density negative entity, if oriented towards maintaining cohesion as a social memory complex, may in its free will determine that the path to wisdom lies in the manipulation and exquisite propriety of all other selves. It then, by virtue of its abilities and wisdom, is able to be the leader of fourth density beings which are upon the road to wisdom by exploring the dimensions of love of self and understanding of self. These fifth density entities see the creation as that which shall be put in order. Dealing with a plane such as this third density at this harvesting, it will see the mechanism of the call more clearly and have much less distortion towards plunder or manipulation by thoughts which are given to negatively oriented entities, although in allowing this to occur and sending less wise entities to do this work, any successes redound to the leaders. The fifth density sees the difficulties posed by the light and in this way directs entities of this vibration to the seeking of targets of opportunity such as this one. If fourth density temptations, shall we say, towards distortion of ego, etc., are not successful, the fifth density entity then thinks in terms of the removal of light. 62.21 Questioner, when the Orion entity who waits us seeking the opportunity to attack is with us here, can you describe his method of coming here, what he looks like, and how he waits? I know that this isn't too important, but it might give me a little insight into what we are talking about. Ra, I am Ra. Fifth density entities are very light beings, although they do have the type of physical vehicle which you understand. Fifth density entities are very fair to look upon in your standard of beauty. The thought is what is sent, for a fifth density entity is likely to have mastered this technique or discipline. There is little or no means of perceiving such an entity, for unlike fourth density negative entities, the fifth density entity walks with light feet. This instrument was aware of extreme coldness in the past diurnal cycle and spent much more time than your normal attitudes would imagine to be appropriate in what seemed to each of you an extremely warm climate. This was not perceived by the instrument, but the drop in subjective temperature is a sign of presence of a negative or non-positive or draining entity. This instrument did mention a feeling of discomfort but was nourished by this group and was able to dismiss it. Had it not been for a random mishap, all would have been well, for you have learned to live in love and light and do not neglect to remember the one infinite creator. 62.22 Questioner, then it was a fifth density entity that made this particular attack on the instrument today? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 62.23 Questioner.
Right, so that's the temporal war. You have to realize that it's not just going on cross dimension, third, fourth, fifth. It's also going on cross time. So dimension, time. It's actually in three different places at the same time because it's in the third dimension here in this density, and then in other places that are third dimension as well as this one that are out of phase with this one that is on this planet. So it's all third dimensional, all fourth dimensional, all fifth dimensional beings. And so that's the war between good and evil. It just doesn't end here. It just gets more separated when you get outside of time. Whereas here they're living with you and they're around. You can see them easier, and that's why you can see them coming more in the fourth and the fifth than you can down here. Here they're just walking around with you. That's why you have assassins from the fifth dimension coming down here, where they're out of phase with you, so you can't see them. Fourth dimensional assassins doing the same and attacking people in the third dimension because they're out of phase with you, and you sense them then or see them with your third eye. If you're third eye blind, if you're not in any way awake to what's going on, you'll never notice them, never sense them until you won't sense the cause, only the effect of them. Okay, and this is why I brought up my buddy Paul and what happened to him. Do you see? Because he was assassinated, and it looks like a mundane thing here. Here in the third dimension, the art of assassination is usually either to make a statement, like they were trying to do with Donald Trump and shoot him on national television so that everybody saw his head explode like they did to John F. Kennedy, or they try to kill you and make it look like an accident. The best assassin will kill somebody and make it look like an accident so there is no investigation, and people go, he got in a car wreck and he died. And nobody notices. That's why people investigate and see, did somebody tamper with the brakes? Did somebody do this? And what was, they do all that because people trying to stop bad guys know that bad guys do those things to make it look like an accident. So they look for those things. And if they can rule all of that out, then they can say there was no foul play. But until they know for certain that there was no foul play, they look at the evidence and go, And that's why we have Occam's razor, right? Occam's razor is literally what looks like the most likely thing and scenario is more than likely what happened. So if a wife gets killed, the first person who's a suspect is the husband, because depending on how the wife died, most of the time the husband murdered his wife. So that's the law enforcement's ideology. So you never suspect that everything is natural. You never suspect that everything is just normal. you always see first, does it look like foul play? If not, and how do you do that? You go through the motions of proving that it wasn't. Doesn't look like there was any foul play here anywhere. So then you do an autopsy. And the autopsy tells you, again, if there was some foul play that you missed or if it was natural. If it's a psychic attack, it's really hard because most people in this place don't believe in that. So it's really hard to prove that a psychic attack was foul play. Because legally in this country, magic doesn't exist. So if you cast a spell on somebody and they die, and someone says he cast a spell on that person and died, the judge is going to look at you and go, case dismissed. Magic is not a thing. And there's no way of proving it. Have a nice day. And that's why evil people will use that to their advantage. Because people here in the mundane don't believe that it's real. Okay, let's continue.
Isn't this unusual that a fifth density then would bother to do this rather than sending a fourth density servant? Shall I say? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Nearly all positive channels and groups may be lessened in their positivity or rendered quite useless by what we may call the temptations offered by the fourth density negative thought forms. They may suggest many distortions towards specific information, towards the aggrandizement of the self, towards the flowering of the organization in some political, social, or fiscal way. These distortions remove the focus from the one infinite source of love and light of which we are all messengers, humble in knowing that we, of ourselves, are but the tiniest portion of the Creator, a small part of a magnificent entirety of infinite intelligence. 62.24 Questioner, is there something that the instrument could do or we could do for the instrument to eliminate the problem she continually experiences of the cold feeling of these attacks? Ra, I am Ra. Yes. 62.25 Questioner, would you tell me what we could do? Ra, I am Ra. You could cease in your attempts to be channels for the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. 62.26 Questioner.
Well, that's not going to happen, right? So you have to realize that, some of that, okay? We teach this too, that, and they do it in movies as well. And there's a reason for everything. In the movies, even though they're subconscious or super conscious, in the movies where people will be, say, going in and they're looking for evil, and it's say an evil entity, and they're hunting it or whatever, and then they'll have the room go drastically cold, right? Oh, it just got cold in here. Anybody that's like a vampire hunter or something like that, or a spirit hunter, will then sense that and go, okay, we need to really be careful now, because the negative entities work in that instead of the heat. They work in the cold. And that's why everybody always assumes that cold is negative and hot and the heat is positive, but that's just has to do with masculine and feminine in a different respect for the Kundalini, Kunda buffer energy, and the cold, like cold fusion, is actually a positive thing. It's not negative. However, some of a negative energy comes across that way as cold, not hot. But then in the movies, they teach you that it's backwards. That's why the sayings are been perverted. Instead of as below, so above, everyone says as above, so below, because that's a hierarchy. And they corrupt everything so that you believe that it's from the top down, because there's a master in charge above you. When in truth, that saying in the Bible doesn't say it that way. If you go to Matthew 18, verse 8 or 18. I don't have my Bible in front of me to pull it out and open it. If you go in there, Jesus is talking and says that God says, what you shall sow on the earth, I shall too sow in heaven. That means as below, so above, not as above, so below. What you reap on earth, I shall too reap in heaven. That doesn't mean as above, so below. That means as below, so above. Okay. So the actual saying is as below, so above, as within, so without, not as above, so below, as without, so within. That's the corruption of the ideology to get you thinking there is this God that is in charge and that you're nothing. There is and get used to the idea of a caste system, a pyramid system where there's one person in charge and everybody's beneath that person. That's a third dimensional concept and construct that people are actually trying to get you to buy into. Okay. Let me answer that. There is no such thing as the Anunnaki. Okay. That word doesn't even exist in that context that you think, but your concept of the Anunnaki is not raw. The concept of the Anunnaki and what most people believe the Anunnaki is the Orion Crusaders. Unless you're one of those people that believes that the Anunnaki are good people and they came here to help us. And that's why you're asking that question. Ra did come from Orion. Okay. Ra's people did come from Orion's belt. I know that because I personally am one of Ra's people. So is a few of the people that are in this audience right here currently. But we are not in service to self. We're in service to others. And we came here to defeat the people who are in service to self. So the majority of the people see the Anunnaki as this race of people who came here. And they say, well, there were good people because they taught us how to create civilization. All of that is actually the negative that Ra is warning about. Creating this system that we have today on this earth with monetary system, governmental system, the caste system, and all of the supposed free trade where you have to charge money for everything. All of that is actually negative in service to self. All of that filters 100% of all money uphill to the 1% people that are in charge. All of it. So your governmental system, your city system, your policing system, your military system, your school system, your church system, every system that is in place is a maritime law system. The word Anunnaki actually doesn't exist as one word like that, and you can look this up. That's based on Zecharia Sitchin's translation when he was teaching himself how to translate the Mesopotamian cuneiform. He didn't understand the language, and he was trying to teach himself to translate it. He used the word Anu in that word Anunnaki. He used the word Anu and knew that the Akkadians, who lived next door to Mesopotamia, who were Greeks, had a god called Anu. So he assumed that they were talking about the god Anu. And then he figured that the word ki meant comes. He completely just threw the word na out of that sentence and ignored it. The god Anu came to earth. Anu ki. Forgot na, didn't even translate it. It didn't mean anything to him. He didn't need it. And he left it out. Okay. And he said that it meant the god Anu came down to earth. Come forward in time to 2012. Giorgio Tsoukalos from History Channel's, from Prometheus and History Channel's Ancient Aliens, who I'm friends with, by the way. And he's in my Ancient Aliens Worldwide group that I created back in 2012. That's still on Facebook today and has 300,000 members in it worldwide currently. Unless Facebook deleted another 20 or 30,000, because they do that every time we get over 300,000. He then in 2012 translated that as one whole word, Anunnaki, and changed the translation of Zecharia Sitchin from 1948 from the god Anu came to earth, said that in the beginning, and then by the third episode where he mentioned the Anunnaki, it then was translated by him as those from the heavens came. Now an entire species came down to earth, and everybody ran with that since 2012, and here we are in 2024, and now it's an entire species, a race of people. The word Anunnaki has now been added to the Mesopotamian god pantheon, when it wasn't there until 2015, and then they added it on because they claimed that that's what it meant. And so people, but the scholars who actually have translated the language of the Mesopotamians to this day say the translation is Anunna, one word, Ki, another word. Anunna means the prince or royalty. Doesn't mean a god. Doesn't even mean a king. And the word Ki does mean comes. So Anunna didn't mean the god Anu. It meant the prince, royalty, came and taught us things. Didn't mean a species from outer space. Okay, so directly answering your question, no. But what you know is the concept of Anunnaki, no, because Ra is not evil. They are here to warn you about the Orion Crusaders. That's what they were called when they left the Orion's belt and came here. Okay. And now most people know that evil group of people as the Anunnaki. But then there's people now that are believing that they are a righteous group of really good, wholesome people that were beautiful. And so now you have people that are choosing sides and starting a religion of both. But directly to answer the question, no, Ra's people were never what you would think as the Anunnaki. They were literally, they called themselves Ra, but they were literally a group of people that came from Orion. They're actually part of the Orion Coalition of Light. Okay, the Orion Council of Light. You might have heard of that. The Orion Coalition of Light are those of us down here on this planet who came here with that group of people who came as wanderers down here to be boots on the ground doing what we're doing. Some people, like if you listen to Alex Coulier, he talks about the Patal. That is Ra's people. That is our people. We are the Patal. Okay. We came from the Orion's belt. We chased the Orion Crusaders out of there, chased them here. They occupied 23 planets in this sector of the universe. And then they ran on their way into the center of this universe, of this galaxy, attacking and taking over places. And they've been gone almost as fast as they got here. And we're here to mop up and fix what they damaged this place with. And that's this structure that you see that is currently in place, that these people around the earth are fighting so hard to keep the status quo of. Well, that's actually a pretty good question, right? They're just like us. Let me put your thing up on the screen. So do you know what the appearance of the Orion Crusaders look like? Ra's actually discussing that right here in this where we're at, because they're not just third dimensional beings. They're fourth dimensional and fifth dimensional beings. Third dimensional beings, they actually are a conglomeration, just like our United Nations or here on this earth. So the truth is there are many different beings. Some of them are draconian. Some of them are grays, but not all grays are evil, and not all draconians are evil. Some of them are Palladians, but not all of them are evil. Some of them are the Nordics, but not all of them are evil either. But everybody that's in the Orion Crusaders group, they're all in service to self. Okay. If you look, I did a 25-part series on the 1947 incident from Roswell, New Mexico, that didn't happen. And there was not an alien spaceship that crashed, and there was not an alien, quote unquote, finger quotes, that survived named Errol. And that Errol did not, quote unquote, communicate through telepathy with a nurse in the United States military on the base of Roswell, New Mexico. And the CIA and the deep state of the American government did not have her communicate for 3 months, or was it 3 weeks, or whatever it was, with this alien, and get all kinds of knowledge from this alien about their technology, and moreover, a story about what's going on in the universe and who these people were who invaded our solar system and invaded this sector of the Milky Way galaxy at the time. By the way, I did a 25-part series, and I just talked about that last week or the week before, and gave the video over to some of the people in this group to be able to watch. It's like a 5-hour video, because just before Matilda McElroy euthanized herself, because it's legal over there, and I think she was in Scotland and Ireland under an alias, because she was dying of cancer. Just before she did that, she took all of the information and gave it to a reporter who correlated it all and made this video. And I have received that video back in 2010 16 or 15, 17, somewhere around there. And then shifted into this reality. And that video was now made in 2012 here. So it's further back, but it is still the same video and it's still out there, although the timeline has changed, but that timeline shifted anyways. Because I did the law of one interpretation the first time I did that in 2017 as well. And now in this one, if you go back and check my archives, it said I started it in 2019 and did it in 2019 or 2018, 19 and 20, or 2019 and 20 and 21. When I did it in 2017, 2018 and 2019, which is weird, right? But there was a big shift there in the timeline 2 years ago now in May that changed a lot of things on this earth. So that alien talks, and you can listen to it if you know anything about the law of one and what Ra's talking about, and you listen to Errol and what Errol's saying, and if not, you should watch what I did back then about it, because I tell you that Errol was what people call the Anunnaki. Errol is the Orion Crusaders. She's one of them, and she basically tips her hand and tells everybody that everything that Ra in 1981 to 1984 is warning you about in 1948, this person came through, but there's no way that Carla could have known that because the information was never published to the world for Carla to know about until 2012 in this reality, and 2016 in the reality that I came from. So there's no way that Carla could have read a book or read any of that information because it was classified until she gave the information over and it popped out in 2012. And Carla did all of this back in 1984. So then some people could say, well, then maybe that McElroy made all of this up. Well, you would have to, if you go back and you're an alien hunter like myself, and you go back time before both of those informations were made available, 1981 and beyond, those stories were already there. I remember as a kid learning from when I was 17, 18 years old at that time, learning from CIA insiders about that incident in Roswell and that interview. So that was already being leaked out prior to that information coming out that came out later. But you couldn't get it. There's no way Carla was able to get it. There was no way that they were getting insider information because her husband didn't even believe in UFOs. And just started, they published a book before they did the Law of One, where he just started talking about UFOs, and he avoided that subject when Ra started talking about it. He avoided it as often as he could in the first like 4 or 5 books, right? So, yeah, Peter is in the chat's talking about that. I didn't see Anna. Welcome. I didn't see that Anna said something in the chat. So Peter's talking about that. Yeah, she had a little bungalow next to Newgrange in Ireland, in the county of Meath. Let me put it up on the screen so people can see that, because I had his still up there. In the county of Meath, to protect herself. Newgrange is the circle. Yeah, that's the circle of life, the wooden circle. So literally, there's been telltale signs of the Orion Crusaders and everything that Ra said about them, and is telling you and warning you about. There's been signs on this earth prior to that where people were doing exactly that information that was coming out, but that information wasn't readily available for Carla and Dawn to have in 1981. But some of us had insider information because of our connections even back then. So when these things came out, I didn't know about it either, and I was talking about this stuff, and somebody said to me, a friend of mine said, dude, you're talking about the Law of One. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I've never read the Law of One. Then I read it and went, oh, yeah, okay. So, yeah, all right. This information is being leaked out, including about those of us who had to hide from all of you until we were able to not. And that was leaked out over in the Czech Republic to the Podrezgas when they were I think they're still channeling what they call OLI, the extraterrestrial biological entity called OLI, that they've been doing since 1994 or 95. And I've been communicating with them since 2015 or 16 and getting information from them and asking OLI questions. And OLI was giving me information that they didn't understand, that was designed for me to know and read. And OLI was talking about our group down here of captains of ships that were undercover, that needed to stay undercover, of 7 ships, 7 captains of 7 ships undercover on Earth that would not be revealed until a specific time. And Oli was letting me know that the time was coming for us to start telling you guys who we were. And I never told the Podreskas that when they gave me that information, because it wasn't yet time. And I didn't tell anybody else in the group that either until it was time. Peter was the first one to start telling me it was time. Bro, it's time. You start telling people. Right. So let's see. What are you saying here? I have researched the 1993 Italy UFO crash in Lombardy. Let me pull this up. Supposedly Mussolini got his hands on it. Yeah, both Mussolini and the Nazis at the time were getting their hands on all of that stuff, right? After World War II, the U.S. took it and brought it to the U.S., right? Marconi was the top scientist. Yeah, they took all the scientists too and brought them all over here too, right? Yeah, they did that. They took all the German scientists, the Russians, and the English and the Americans, split up all those scientists and brought them all to their countries. And what most people don't understand happened was once all these Nazis got into all these governments and started realizing, hey, we're basically in charge here, they took over from within, and the Nazi Third Reich lost the physical war and took over the world. A lot of people don't know that. So this oligarchy that's running the planet right now, like Peter will tell you, if he's in the audience still, about the Rothschilds, that means Red Shield. They changed their name to Red Shield. Rothschild literally is German for Red Shield. Some of them changed their names when they came to the United States, and there are these oligarchs that run Bloomberg. A few others changed their names slightly when they got here so that they wouldn't sound German. And they're all Nazis. They're all descendants of Nazis. And they came here. You're living in the Fourth Reich. They own the planet. They believe they own the planet. So all of that goes back to all of the information that they got from the Anunnaki and what they picked up from any alien spaceship that they could shoot down out of the sky and get the information and reverse engineer it. And this is what Ra's been warning about. Ra was from the Orion Crusade, or the Orion Nebula, not the Orion Crusaders, but part of the group that was chasing them, freeing the world. So let me go back to the 23 worlds in this sector of the universe. All of them now, except for 2, are completely freed. Earth being one of the ones that are not. The Anunnaki's gone. The Orion Crusaders are gone. They ran when we got here because they're afraid of us because of who we are. And so they all pulled out and left, but they're still conquering other planets. And we're the mop-up crew that's back here to repair the damage that was done to this place that got everybody stuck. And so we're here to help fix it. And we've been hiding on this earth and not allowing you guys to know who we are. And some of us aren't completely awake yet. And so we've been dragging our feet until everybody wakes up. And Peter was supposed to be one of the ones coming out sooner. But I was holding us back because I was waiting for a few more that are in this audience now currently to start their awakening and piercing their veil so that we would have enough strength in numbers to wake up the rest. And there's other people here that are from other parts of the universe that are also part of that, conglomeration, the Council of Planets from that are on Venus currently in the 5th dimension, that are there, that some in the 7th as well, that are protecting this solar system so that nobody evil can get in and do anything anymore while we fix it and unstick the people on this earth, which is happening and it's almost completed. This will be the last lifetime when it's stuck. 2032 is going to be a huge change and shift. And 2050 will be the even bigger one, akin to 2001 and 2012 and how big those shifts were on this planet. Then they're going to be even bigger than that. 2032, 2050. This entire way of life that you see in front of your eyes. I mean, the reality is still going to be the same. Trees are going to be trees and all of that's going to be the same, but the entire structure of the governmental system and monetary system that you see on this earth right now will be completely gone by 2050. And everybody will be living the way that they were supposed to be. And you'll see an exponential expansion of the human genome and mind and aura as those things change. It's already starting. It's already, the Doppler effect has already happened. The cascading effect has already happened. Seminal point was already reached. And this is why, or breached, and this is why these people are fighting so hard, trying to put everybody back to sleep as fast and as hard as they can. It's because of they don't want this to go away, and they're trying to do everything they can do to get everybody to think they're still in charge, and they're losing their grip, and they know it. Ashley said we were watching a documentary about the star children. Let's put this up on the screen. I'll read it for those people listening on the MP3 broadcast. Documentary about the star children and one about part of the pyramid in Egypt where there was a section of the ceiling that fell off and revealed a panel behind much older. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that, but nobody will acknowledge it because the people, the narrative that's being taught by the official narrative by the Egyptian government is that Khafre or Khufu built the pyramid, and that there's nothing that has anything to do with anybody at all that was off world that built that pyramid, because they make all of their money off of tourism. Even though they would make more money if they admitted that it was aliens, they would have even more people showing up. But they're still part of the same narrative of the so-called Anunnaki, the Orion Crusaders, that they don't want that narrative to change, because anything that helps expand the consciousness of these people, they're trying to stifle. Therefore, nobody can believe that aliens exist, because that expands your consciousness to the idea that there might be something out there that's not just us down here. And if that's the case, then you might go, well, if there's other things in the universe, then maybe there is a God who created the universe. They can't have you thinking that. They have to keep thinking that you have to stay here, wait here. Jesus is going to come back in a bus to pick up all the good ones, and everybody else is going to be left behind. They only want that part of the story being known to you so that you just sit down and wait. Don't do anything, because it's not what all the religions told you. All the religions are telling you that you're supposed to be reaching up to God. All those books were taken out of most of the Bibles. Why is it that it's in the Sistine Chapel where God's hand's reaching down and somebody's reaching up to God then? Why was that fresco painted? Because that was the original narrative. You were supposed to be reaching up to reach up to God. How do you do that? Expanding your consciousness and ascending. And Jesus was trying to teach you that, and so was Muhammad, and so was Moses, and so was many others in every other religion on this earth. They all were trying to teach you that. And that's what my book is about. Let me put that up on the screen so you can see. That's what my book is about that information. Let me put that up on the screen for you. Right? Is that popping up on the screen, or is it not? There it is. Right? My book is called the Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And that's about that knowledge that has been taken from you, that you're unaware of, that was taken from you as soon as the Anunnaki, the proverbial Anunnaki, got here, and the information that they brought with them here to this earth, and what you're living as your slave masters that you think are there, and we are your creator gods. They're not here anymore. The only people saying that now are other humans in third dimension. That's the insane asylum is being run by the insane people now. Those people that were from another planet left here right after they got here and took what they needed from this planet to go and continue on their conquest. And if you read that interview or listen to that video from Errol back in 1947, she tells you that. She tells you that in that video. We got there to come take your resources, and then left. We're leaving on our way into the center of the universe, on our trek in the center of this galaxy, and then in the center of the universe to conquer everybody. She says it right in the video itself. That's what she was doing, and that's what they were doing. And I tell you that if you watch those old videos of mine, but I do it in a very mundane way back then, because I wasn't still not letting anyone know that I was unveiled. I didn't tell anybody that until I think this year now, 2024 or 2023, late 2023, early 2024, before I started telling people, oh, by the way, I'm unveiled. Then it was coming through psychics without their knowledge of me saying that to anybody. So the people up there were making sure that I was telling the world about that. All right. So what's going on here? Sorry. My computer's glitching. Okay. Yes, I would love to. Woo Rider said, would you like to be a a guest on my buddy's podcast, typical skeptic podcast, paranormal, PSI, good exposure to get the message out. Yeah, even if he's a skeptic, I'll still answer questions for him, and depending on how far he wants to go and talk about things on air. Because I was on a podcast talking about my book, and they had me stay way mundane. If you go and watch that, they made sure they were like, I can't have you say too much craziness because we'll get banned, and we can't have you saying some crazy shit that'll get us banned. So I had to be very careful about the wording and what I could say. So that was on Broadcast Team Alpha. So if you go there and watch the 2 interviews that I did in June and in August from them, both of those are very mundane and very carefully worded in what I said, where I wasn't saying shit like I'm saying now, because they were afraid of these kind of words. But yes, I would love to be on anybody's podcast that wants to have me on, because this is what we're doing now. We're expanding. So to get the message out, even for my book, and if they don't want me to talk about that and just want to talk about the Anunnaki, the messaging of waking these people up is the important thing. So I would love to do that. You can message me if you know Penny, because it looks like you guys were having your conversation. You know Penny. Penny knows how to get in touch with me. If you don't, talk to them, see if they want me on their podcast. Let me know about that, or get us in communication with each other, and I will definitely would love to come on and be on there, even if they're trying to like jump me and say I'm crazy, and talk shit. I'll still go on there because I can still get the information out, and I can talk to anybody. I'm not afraid of anybody. So if they're skeptical, I'll talk to it. If they want to say I'm crazy, I don't care, because people are either going to believe I'm crazy or they're not. I don't try to, I can't convince. Let me go back to Socrates from 5,000 years ago. I cannot convince anybody of anything. The only thing I can hope to do is to get you to start thinking for yourself. That is the true wisdom and ideology of a true guide or teacher, that I'm not trying to convince you of anything. All I'm trying to do is give you tools that you need to be able to ascend from this place. So I would love to. Please talk to them and find out if they want me on, whoever they are, and I'll do it. Definitely. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Wu said, no, brother, I promise that you'll fit in really well with the podcast. Okay, good. So if they're talking about, about all of that and they're okay with that, yeah, I'll come on there. Even, I would have done it either way. Some people won't do that if people are going to attack them. They're like, why would I go on there to be attacked? And I'm like, I'll go on there and say, what if they're going to laugh at me and do all that? Then, they're going to do what they're going to do. But some of their listeners will then go, well, wait a minute, maybe I should take a look at that guy. Do you see? So bad press is good press. That's the way I look at it. But if you're like what they're saying, well, no way, bro, you'll fit right in, then even better. And then it's just a matter of how far they want me to go with my wording. You could literally play this portion in the last, say, hour of what I've talked about and see how far they want to go with letting me talk on, if they're not afraid of people, banning them or censoring them, we can go as far as they want to go. I can say to this world, this is why I can do it here. I can say to this world what this world is capable of understanding and understanding. So if you would go back in time to 10 years ago, you wouldn't be able to hear me say as much as I can say now, because the planet itself the consciousness of the planet itself has expanded exponentially. And so if you look at what Ra was capable of saying, and this is why I'm translating Ra, what Ra was capable of delivering to the population of the earth between 1981 and 1984 is less than 1/10 of what can be said today, because of how far the planet, these people, in 1981, the population of the earth was 2.7 billion souls. Today, the population of this earth is 7.9 billion souls. 68% of the population of this earth are not from here. They are wanderers and don't know it. Or not all 68%. 15% of that 68%, 15% of them are not from here, but they're not wanderers. They came from other places and they're in the 3D here. But 68% of the population of this earth are not from here. They're not indigenous to this earth. And none of you knows about it unless you're awake enough to know it. Okay. So let me get back to, oh, there's Rick. Welcome. Let me get back to Raw because we're almost done with this session. We only have 2 minutes, 47 seconds. So let's finish this session this week. So let's go ahead and continue here.
Have I missed anything now that we can do at all to aid the instrument during, before, or after a session or at any time? Ra, I am Ra. The love and devotion of this group misses nothing. Be at peace. There is some toll for this work. This instrument embraces this or we could not speak. Rest then in that peace and love and do as you will, as you wish, as you feel. Let there be an end to worry when this is accomplished. The great healer of distortions is love. 62.27 Questioner, I have a question that I couldn't properly answer last night. It was asked by Morris. It has to do with the vibrations of the densities. I understand that first density is composed of core atomic vibrations that are in the red spectrum, second in the orange, etc. Am I to understand that the core vibrations of our planet are still in the red and that second density beings are still in the orange at this time/space or space/time right now, and that each density as it exists on our planet at this time has a different core vibration? Or is this incorrect? Ra, I am Ra. This is precisely correct. 62.28 Questioner, then as the fourth density vibrations come in, this means that the planet can support entities of fourth density core vibration. Will the planet then still be first density core vibration, and will there be second density entities on it with second density vibrations, and will there be third density entities with third density vibrations? Ra, I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. There is energy, but the distortions of the instrument suggest to us it would be well to shorten this working with your permission. 62.29 Questioner, yes. Ra, you must see the Earth, as you call it, as being 7 Earths. There is red, orange, yellow, and there will soon be a completed green color vibratory locus for fourth density entities, which they will call Earth. During the fourth density experience, due to the lack of development of fourth density entities, the third density planetary sphere is not useful for habitation, since the early fourth density entity will not know precisely how to maintain the illusion that fourth density cannot be seen or determined from any instrumentation available to any third density. Thus in fourth density the red, orange, and green energy nexi of your planet will be activated, while the yellow is in potentiation along with the blue and the indigo. May we ask at this time if there be any brief queries?
Okay, so before they finish that was in 1981. Fourth density is actually being created now and is happening. Okay, people are moving into that here. Okay. So the third density is supposed to already be done, and we were supposed to have shifted into the fourth density on this Earth, okay? But it didn't happen on time the way it was supposed to. The shift that's coming between now and 2032 and 2050 is going to be that shift. That's the Hopi Rock legend, where they talk about the split, where you have this utopian society, and then you have the society where there's hardly anybody left on the Earth, about 680,000 people left on Earth. And the Aborigines in Australia have a similar story that they can tell you. That time, and this is why people are saying, oh, you're almost out of time and you have to choose really soon. And this is why you're seeing this split now within people, where people are refusing to choose and to wake up. You're seeing this start to happen. In fact, the guy who channels Bashir was just talking about this in a video that one of you, I think it was Stephanie, sent me, that I was watching the video, and he was talking about this, where you're seeing that shift starting to happen now. And that's where the Christians talked about the rapture, and that there's going to be this shift, and there's going to be this left behind. So it is going to happen in some sense in that way. But I don't want to get too involved in that. That could take me a half an hour to explain that. But that shift is coming. And that's why you see these people that are in service to self fighting so hard to keep their power right now. And they're trying to do anything they can do, including kill off, 3/4 of the population of the Earth, to shut everybody up, to have them recycle, because they know that their time is short. Okay. And that's the whole, 666, right? For the devil sent his beast beast with wrath because he knows the time is short. That's where that comes from. Okay. So that was used in Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. In the beginning of that, the prelude to it was that section that came from Talmud's, right? So the devil sent his beast with wrath because he knew his time was short. That's why you hear about that in the devil will be unleashed on the earth for a time. They changed that translation now where it doesn't say that anymore. If you look at the King James version or any version of any Bible prior to that, so going back to the 1500s, that's the same thing with the 666 and the number of the beast. They always say, for it is the number of man. That's the new version translation of the Bible currently. And and its number is 666. That's not the original translation. The original translation is, for it is a human number, right? That's what they say now. It's not that. It is the original translation is that it is the number of man. Because we're made up of this physical place, and the human physicality is made up of 6 neutrons, 6 protons, and 6 electrons. 666. Okay. So 666 being the number of the beast. The beast is physical third dimensional reality. Okay. So that passage that's thousands of years old in that old Talmud originally did not say, for it is a human number, and it's the number of 666. And everybody just believes, oh, that's the number of the devil, is the 666 is representation of the devil. That's not what that meant. It's the representation of the beast. The human condition, third dimensional life, is carbon based. 6 neutron or 6 carbon, 6 proton, 6 electron. Sorry, I said neutron. 6, that's a star. 6 carbon, 6 electrons, 6 protons makes up the human, the physical condition. So they knew about that in the past. That's what's in my book. I talk about that in my book, and I'm writing more about it in the second book that I'm writing now. Okay. So the fourth dimension, we're starting to move into that. We're creating it. Those people who are in service to others, who are uplifting this entire species on this earth, this is why what's happening here is so rare. It's only happened, this will be the second time in this Milky Way galaxy ever since the creating of the Milky Way galaxy. This event that's going to happen on this earth is the second time ever. And it wasn't here that it happened the first time. You guys are unaware of that, most of you. And that event is that we are going to shift from the third density dimension and create, which is what we're creating now, and going to shift into the fourth. Instantaneously moving into the fourth. So it's just going to be this, but it's going to change. So no one's going to notice it except for those of us who are aware of it. And the only people who are aware of it are those of you out there on the world who perceive the time shifts, the temporal shifts that they call the Mandela effect. Those of you who remember those and are aware of those, and that when there's a large one and someone talks about it, and there's this whole group of people that remember that shift and go, I remember when it was like that. And then there's a bunch of people that go, I don't know what you're talking about. You guys are tripping. It's just a Mandela effect. You think that you know something, and it's just, you're just imagining it, or you're remembering it wrong. Those people who are remembering that are supposed to, because those people are vibrating at a higher dimensional vibration, because all of the people who perceive those shifts when the time changes are wanderers, whether they're awake enough to know it or not. Those of us who are awake know it. That's why we make a point to say, how do you remember this or that or this or that? Or somebody puts it out and says, do you remember when it was this way and now it's this way? Are you one of those people who are from the old timeline, or are you one of the people from the new timeline? Okay, because you're shifting all the time. You shift all the time, but you don't notice that thing, because there's many dimensions of your course in your life that you shift to different realities in, but you are never perceiving those shifts. So if it's not personal to only you, and you remember that, and other people remember the same shift as you, that's a shift that has happened because we're changing this place. and you'll remember those shifts. They won't. So literally, when this thing changes and becomes fourth dimensional, most people aren't going to be aware that anything happened and that there was a third dimensional, because everybody is already starting to believe we're already moving into 4D, and then we're going to move into 5D right after that. So people are already accepting that concept without realizing what that actually means. Because subconsciously or superconsciously, those people that are all accepting of that are wanderers, and they know that they need to be accepting of that. They instinctively know that that's what they're trying to do. Okay. Yeah, for it is a human number is the wrong translation. Penny was typing what I said. The actual translation is for it is the number of man, is the way it was originally written. Not human, just man. And then they put human there when they stopped saying just man, because people used to only say man when they referred to the entire species before, which bothers me to this day. It does. It still bothers me. I hate when people say man when they're talking about the whole entire species, because it's not the whole entire species. You know what I mean? Because there's women and men, right? And I don't like the way that we've named it. Human, wool man, still the word man in both of those. So those of you who are female, right? Female, that's all of that was construct by men, right? Calling you guys that. So that gets kind of annoying that it's that way, but it is the unfortunate vernacular that's being used until we come up with a better one. And they're trying to do that with that whole movement of the alphabet people and your pronouns. And that's just not working, because, you know, people like me are getting tired of it. And so when people say, what's your pronouns? I'm like, you can call me Lord Master. I go by both of those, or my liege, or king. And then they get mad at me for doing that. Well, wait, it's okay for you to have whatever pronoun you want. But when I have a pronoun, all of a sudden now you think I'm an asshole because my pronoun is, you call me my Lord and Master. How come I don't get the same rights you get when you think you're a goat? I think that's just as foolish as you saying I'm not your Lord and Master, but you're not gonna give me that right to be called that, right? Why can't I be called? If you can say I'm an it, I can say I'm king, right? You're okay with Charlemagne calling himself Charlemagne the God? He calls himself a god. In fact, two gods, because Charlemagne was a god, Charlemagne and the god. So I am Charlemagne the god. And then other people are calling themselves Amun-Ra. People are naming their kids names. Look at Jesus. That means Jesus in Spanish. People are naming their kids God names. And you're okay with that. And then you don't like the name you have, so you want to have a pronoun of a different name, and you want me to call you he, her, or she, him, or something else. And then I tell you mine's Lord and Master, and now all of a sudden you don't want to call me that? Well, then I'm not going to call you what you call. I'm going to say you're a she. Do you see? If you're going to say that I have to call you something that physically you're not, you have to call me something that I'm physically not. King would be a good thing to call me. So I want you to call me king every time you see me. My Lord. Right? So other people are doing that too, and that's going to stop that entire thing. So if we want to be serious about this, we can do that in a serious way, but don't make me call you something. You know what I mean? Don't make me call you something that is just, I want you to, I see myself as black, right? There's people that do that. There was a black guy who said that he saw himself as a middle-aged white female, right? And people were laughing at him for saying it. Well, wait a minute. If you guys are going to say all these other pronouns, how come that one is all of a sudden taboo because that guy said that and you guys are laughing at him? So it's kind of stupid. All right, let me finish this so we can get this out of the way because I got to go soon.
62.30 questioner. Is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact? Ra, all is well. You have been most conscientious. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the glory of the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai.
Okay. So you have to allow people to have the ability to be who they are so that people don't have a wingding about things, right? Everybody has to be able to be who they are. And I get that. I'm okay with that. Don't get me wrong. But don't try to force that on other people, right? Don't do that. It's just not right. You have those people who are trying to say, I'm not what my physical body is, I'm okay with that. But don't try to tell me that I have to also be that, right? Don't tell me that, because because now you're not accepting of who I am. It should be okay that I am who I am. You should be okay. If I'm going to be okay with who you are, you should be okay with who I am and not think that I have to change my gender or change that stuff or get mad at me because I'm doing that. You see my saying, respect me. If you want me to respect you, I'll respect you, but you got to respect me too, right back. Otherwise, I'm not going to respect you. This doesn't go one way only in everything, right? So the shift is happening and we're going to be moving into 4D. And some of you aren't even going to know there was a change. Some of you don't even know it's changing now. Some of you out there in the world don't realize that we're already halfway into 4D right now. And we're going to be there by 2032, 2050. It's going to be solid. There's going to be a lot of strife between now and 2032, though, guys. And then there's still going to be some residuals that are going to carry over to 2050, right? So, but if we do our job right, then the majority of all of these people are going to shift. And if we can help it, we're going to shift those in service to self too. Right? Because we don't want to leave anybody behind because we're not evil that way. We're not like, well, I'm going to get mine, you guys get yours and screw you. But everybody is going to have to make a choice. And you have to be aware of the choice to make it properly. And what they're trying to do is make the choice for you. And they've been doing that for you for a very long time now. And we're here to ensure that you have every tool at your disposal so that if it does change and you end up in the other place, you don't all of a sudden go, how the fuck did I get here? You'll know, oh, that was what that choice was that I decided to not make. Okay. Because then you're stuck. Do you see? Everybody's going to know there's a choice and they're going to know that they have to make it and they're going to have to choose that free will. But we're giving you that tool and the knowledge that that's what's happening, because the powers that should not be, that think they own this planet, they don't want you knowing it. They want you to move into that place and never know that there was a shift that you had a choice of, because that's what they've been keeping from you the entire time. We're not allowing that to happen. Pure and simple. It's just not the way it works. And it drives them crazy, and they've been trying to stop us since they've gotten the knowledge. All right, guys. I love you guys. I got to get off here. It's 5:30. I got to get my mom in the shower. I'm sure she needs one by now. Looks like she took off one of her shoes. So that means she probably peed. So I need to get her in the shower and then get dinner going. I love you guys. I think Cassie, I don't know if she said she was going to have a class on Tuesday or I'm sorry, on Sunday. I think she was claiming that, but I don't know if she definitively said that for sure. So if you're in the Law of One chat, find out from Cassie if she's going to do a thing on Sunday. If not, I'll be back on Wednesday to do something on Wednesday. Off air. Eventually, we're going to start doing this like this on air. We're going to have you guys on as well to ask questions. So we're getting you guys used to the idea of doing that. But beforehand, if you guys aren't comfortable with talking on air to people, we're going to give you that platform as well. But eventually, we're going to move into the public forum, so that way people out there can just see it live and ask questions if they want to ask questions of us, so that we can answer these particular questions that I do on my show already. But you will be able to be on screen and verbalize that, so you won't have to try and get my attention and have me put on my glasses in the chat, although some of that still happens too in there. So I may have to go back to using Zoom and paying for that, because right now I can only have 10 people in here at one time. And I think I might be able to have 2 in the green room that are not live, but other than that, I can't. So if I go back to Zoom and start paying them, I can have 50 or 100 people on screen at once, and then you can push button to raise your hand if you have a question. So I may start paying the $150 a year to Zoom again, just to get that back in operation as needed. I think Cassie's already paying money, so she's already got hers set up to do that. And I know that Jacqueline, if she were still here, she's already paying for them, and she does that as well. I stopped paying for it just recently because I didn't think we were going to go down that avenue right away. And it turned out that I should have continued to pay. So I'm probably going to set that right back up so that when I do that, it won't be in this studio. But for now, I'm in a studio like this with those of you guys coming in for the next couple of weeks, probably, or month or so, before I have to start paying because it gets too big. So if you guys have questions and you don't get to type it in the chat here, or you're somewhere around the world and you have Messenger, you can get a hold of us or get put into the Law of One chat or get a hold of me and I can give you the link to come into the studio where we will not be recording and we will not be on air and talk to you guys and work with you and answer questions about spirituality and what's going on. And anybody out there who has a podcast or is friends with somebody who has a podcast that wants to have me come on and talk about my book or this subject or this information or any of the alien stuff or magic or any of that, contact me, because I'll come on and talk. I go on everybody's show that wants to hear me talk, and I'll do that, specifically for you guys. So it'll be good coverage for me and good coverage for you guys. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. If I don't talk to you in the chat, I'll see you guys on Wednesday, some of you, and I'll see the rest of you back here on Friday next week. And for those of you listening around the world, I'll list. You guys can still listen to me on this platform as long as I continue to post, which I'll start doing the other stuff and posting it up there. That's why now I make sure that I entitle Orion Rising and the Law of One as a class, because once I start transitioning to the other stuff, you'll see that I'll be posting other sources of, instead of Orion Rising, it'll be either just my name or the title of what we're talking about. But you guys will know that when it pops up. And if you follow Orion Rising, you'll see that it'll stay under that banner so I don't have to start a new thing until we, as a group of people with the Orion Coalition, when we decide to open ours up, that's when I'll transfer all of my podcast over to there. And that will be the only time that Orion Rising will end. But you guys will get all of that information who want to continue listening to me to shift over to that podcast once we get that up and operational. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great weekend. I will see you guys later. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show.